Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Restaurant Touchscreen Point of Sale application. In this week's unique training, we're going to create a complete application from scratch, starting with a blank screen and creating a fully dynamic touchscreen application, complete with pictures for food, restaurants, a pop-up keyboard, categories for food, and a dynamic receipt that can be printed to the kitchen or any local printer. It's going to be an amazing training you won't want to miss. So let's get started. Alright, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got a ton to show you because for the first time ever, we are going to be creating a complete touchscreen application that is fully customizable, fully dynamic, and we're going to base it on a restaurant. But even if you don't want to create a restaurant touchscreen point of sale application, you're going to learn so many techniques, tricks, and tips in this training that it's going to be extremely beneficial for you no matter what application or what you want to create, because we've got a ton to show you. I create these videos each and every Tuesday for you so that you can create amazing applications on your own, get those freelance jobs, or create applications for sale. So if you like to, I'd appreciate you subscribing, and that's going to help you get alerted to my new videos each and every week. Just go ahead and click that notification icon bell down below, and it really helps me in the YouTube algorithm if you click like and comment below. So I really appreciate that too. We've got so much. I want to get started right away on this. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to be saving these first two columns. That's going to be for admin. So I'm going to color those in gray right away. I want to get started right away. And basically what we're going to do is I'm just going to color everything, just give it a nice blue background for a while. So that'll cover it, at least for the basics. And then what we'll do is we'll customize it accordingly. So I'm going to give it this color here. And so basically I want to have a logo around here, and then some buttons at the top, and then a receipt down here that'll be colored white, something like that. So how do we do that? Well, let's create just some standard buttons first so that we can get an idea. So I'm going to have a top bar menu here, and I also want to have a category menu down here based on buttons. So when you click a category, all the pictures show up here, and then we can add the receipt in here, something like that. So let's do that. I'm just going to go in for some basic buttons now, just a basic shape, and we'll create some header buttons first. And let's set the size on those, maybe right around 4.43 on the height, and something like around 1.66 on the width. That's about the style. Let me give it a shape, color, something like, I'll just give it a flat color, something a little bit darker and contrasting on here. I like this color here. That's going to be a nice contrasting color. And then I want to give it a font. So let's put some text in that button. So I'll call it New Dine In. So what I want to do is I want to get at least the format for this shape before we move forward and create more shapes. So you want to make sure everything's the same. And I'll put that in the center, I guess, and make it bold so it kind of stands out. So that's about what I want, and a little bit higher on the font. That's it. Something like that is going to be good. I'll probably reduce the zoom on this so we can see more. So New Dine, then I want to put an icon on the right. So that's going to be fine. And I'm going to duplicate that button multiple times so that we can get our header button. So I'm going to hit Control D, Control D, Control D, and I want about 7 buttons here at least. So I'm going to place them across the top. In fact, we're going to extend this all the way to column V, actually, because I want to go, we have a lot more to cover. So let's extend that to a few more columns over so we can see it. There we go. Column V will cover it. And now we have our basic format. And so what I want to do is I want to put new orders. I want to give it 3 new types of orders. So we're going to have dine in, we're going to have takeaway, and delivery. I'm going to put those up on here, right around about here. So starting right about here. And then I want to have new dine in, and this we'll call this take away. So when we new take away, so we can have 3 different types of orders here. And then I want to have one called new delivery, so that we can have delivery. Okay, so that's good. And we're going to have some icons too on that. And then I want one for a keyboard. I want to put a pop-up keyboard here, so we'll keep that one blank. And I'm going to minimize that because that's going to be just a small icon here. That's about what I want there. And let's line those up just so we can get an idea. I'm going to format, align the middles, and then I'm going to distribute them vertically or horizontally actually. So okay, so what else, what other buttons do we want? I want to be able to save an order. That's obviously very important. So let's put that in here. We'll call this save order. And that button can be a little bit smaller on that one. I'll put that one about 1.35 on that one. So a little bit smaller because we have less room. And then I also, of course, we want to actually send the order. I want to send it to the kitchen or the local printer. Send order. And then lastly, I also want a payment. We need to mark up when a customer pays. So let's call this payment. Okay, so payment. So we have save order, send order, and payment. So we've got those right down. Now let's create these a little bit smaller. These I'm going to put this one send order at about 1 point, a little bit less than that because it's not, we don't have that much text on that. And the payment's going to be a smaller button, something around 1.35. Okay, so these are going to go above the receipt here. So I'm going to put those, let's slide over a little bit. I'm going to put these above the receipt. And so we'll put those about right here. And then this, and then this. Okay, that'll look good. That's about what I want. I'm going to line those in the middle, and then I'm going to distribute them again horizontally. That's about what I want. This is going to be for our printer, so this can be a little bit smaller. Okay, good. So we have our top buttons, but what about our buttons on the left? What I want to do is I want to create some categories. And what are those categories? We're going to have about, let's say, 7 categories. And I want those here, but I want those buttons a little bit smaller on those categories. So we'll put those about maybe 1.5 on that, a little bit smaller. So 1.5. And this is where my category is going to be. So I'm going to duplicate that, and I want them to go down here. Basically, what I want is I want to have my categories. So when you select a category, the pictures show up here. So we're going to have 7 of them. So we got 2 more to do. So let's do that. And so, all right, that's good. And now let's stretch them below and about here. So we can spread them out accordingly here. And that'll look nice. Okay, so we have that. And I'm going to put something like categories here. So we know that it's a category. I'll start this out. So here's going to be where a category. So I'm going to merge and center this. And I'm going to color this white. And we're going to call this category. So we know exactly what type of category those are. And then I'm going to center it and then increase the font, make it bold, and I'll put, just so we can clearly see it, I'll put some borders around it. Something nice, something a little bit colored so we can see using the same color. And then I'll use a double line all the way around it. Okay, so what I want is I want to have my categories. Let's pull this up a little bit. So here we get an idea of the full screen width, and that's going to be good. I'll bring it up a little bit. So we're going to have 7 categories, and I think that's 7. Okay, and then I'm going to line them on the left, and then of course distribute them vertically here, and then distribute vertically. Okay, that's going to be nice for our categories, but I also want some icons on here. And now we're just about ready to import the icons. So what I want to do is I want to line these up with this category here. So just like lined up here and bring it down here. Okay, I like that. That's pretty good. Nice and separated here. It's enough. As we bring the screen up, you'll see we've got everything covered and separated. Let's type in what categories do we want. Well, I'm going to want to have pizza. Pizza. I love pizza. So we got to put that in. Just so we know, I have put some additional data here, which is going to help us. So I've got menu items. We've got menu main, and we've got a picture that's going to attach. We've got a description. We've got item number and item ID. So all those are going to help us out fill that. And we have categories. So our categories are mains, desserts, starters, drinks, salad, pizza, and pasta. So we've got a lot of great food here. It's going to make us hungry, this training, I'm sure, and we're going to learn a lot. So we'll go get a good meal after this. All right, in the admin section, I've got field, just a list, some pre-lists, and a list of printers. That's going to help us because we need to assign a specific printer for the machine that we're working on and the kitchen. So just to help us move along, I've added those, and I'll go over that with you, so no problem. And menu items, and then we want to track orders. So I'm going to have a list of orders here, all the orders that we have, and then each individual order is going to contain a list of items, right? So we need to track each order number and then the list of items that we have on that. All right, so let's get started on that. Also, what I want to do is I want to have a default picture. So I want to have the picture appear here, and I want to have a default description. So let's duplicate that and create a small thing, and we'll just call this default description. What that is going to do is going to put a description right below the picture, and so we can make that smaller. That's going to, in fact, I want that pretty much the same width as this column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 5 different columns of pictures, 1 here, 2 here. So notice we have 1, we have 5 different columns. I set up the columns to help us a little bit quicker move along because it's already going to be a long training. So I want this about the same width as the column. So let's put that at about 1.4 on the format, right about that 1. Okay, so that's going to be good for our default description, and then about something about 0.4 on the, a little bit less, 0.4 on the top. So what that's going to do is we're going to create shapes as a default description, and you'll see as it comes to life how this default description, the font is a little bit too big on this because we have some more detailed. So let's go down to maybe 11 or even 10, a little bit less, because we have some higher description. So we want to make sure all the description of the item fits in. So we're going to use this shape as the default description. So each picture and then below it will have a description. So I'll show you that, how we're going to do that. We've got the, let's put in our icons, and I've got some icons saved up, and in fact I'm going to make sure you get all of these icons in a pack. It's going to be a zip pack download. If you want to download this for free, just go ahead and click the links down below. If you want over 150 of my applications, I now have that available. It's just $56. I still have the 100 for $37, but the 50 includes all of my latest applications. So I want to make sure you get that. I'm going to put in all these icons, bring them right in the sheet, and of course the size is going to be way too big. So let's set that down to right around 0.23. All right, so that's going to set them out. So let's see how we're going to do that. First, I've got to, let's pull this out. This is my application icon. So let's bring that up. That's my logo, restaurant point of sale logo. So we put that in nice, and I'll put a little bit of shadow on behind that just so you can see it kind of stands out a little bit. Okay, so what do we have here? We have drinks. So I'm going to put that down here. Let's put in our categories here. We have pizza. We have salads. So we know where to put the icons. What else do we have? Of course, we have starters, right? That's going to start off our meal. We need to know that. Starters. And we've got, of course, pasta. I want to put that in. Main courses. I think I want everything. Main courses. I'm going to order a lot, so I hope I brought enough money. I also want to have drinks, and of course, it wouldn't be complete without dessert. Drinks and desserts. Desserts are my favorite part, so I'll probably order a lot. Desserts. Let me check to make sure I spelled everything right, because it's kind of embarrassing when I misspell things and I don't discover it for an hour. Okay, that looks good. Pizza, salads, starters, pasta, main courses, and drinks. Now, if you want to get these icons, if you want more of these icons, a little bit later I'm going to show you how you can get tons of free icons. If you don't see what you like here, I'll make sure to give you a link so we can do that. Make sure to get it. This is going to be the edit, and this is going to be how we delete items in the menu. So we're going to put that over here. That's why they're in a different color. Desserts, this looks like a proper dessert. And ice cream. We also want to have, let's see, this is going to be dine-in icon. So I'm going to put that up here. This is going to be our keyboard icon. We got a pop-up. That's going to need to be a little bit bigger here. Pop-up keyboard, really cool. I'm going to show you a macro to do that. That's a macro that it's been already created because it's a long macro. So I'll just, that's something I downloaded off the internet. So every once in a while. New delivery, we need more spacing on that one. So let's put some spaces on that here. So we have more space for the icon, and we have a takeaway. What have we got a takeaway? It looks like a bag here. That's going to be for our takeaway. Again, I need a little bit more space on here. Just add some spaces on here so everything's okay. See, our screen's starting to come out, and we have a default picture. That's going to help us out. If for some reason you don't have a picture for a food, we want to put something in place of that, and we're going to use that. Okay, this is going to be for our send order because I need to drop down list if we're going to send it to the kitchen or the local printer. So we can have a pop-up there. We're going to create 2 more shapes. This is going to be for our pop-up, and this is going to be for our printer. So in other words, if we're going to send to a kitchen, I want to create an icon. I need to create 2 more shapes. I'm going to duplicate this here, and I'm going to put send to kitchen. We need to send the order to the kitchen so they can make our food. And we also want another one called send to local. Okay, because that's a local printer, right? And let's say you have a machine printer. And let's bring these 2 icons. We created them before these shapes, so I need to bring them to the top. Format, bring to the front. That's going to bring them. And then what I want to do is I'm going to drop this down a little bit. I'm going to put this icon right up here. And of course, we're going to group everything in this one group. And then we just have to make a little bit more spaces for the icon here. So we'll move that over here a little bit. Okay. All right, that's good that we have that sending to the kitchen and send to the local. Bring it over a little bit. Okay, so we've got our kitchen. So basically what I want to happen is I want to automatically, when we send it to the local, I want to this drop down list and send it to the kitchen so we can print automatically. That's going to be a really cool pop-up group. So we're going to bring those up here, send to local and send to the kitchen. Bring it up here. I'll group those in a moment. Let's continue on with our salads. So we got a salad icon here. Let's continue with our starters to start. We got some bread. I like bread, so let's bring that here into the starters. That's a common starter, bread. Pasta, even have a pasta icon here. I love pasta. I'm already getting hungry. Okay, send to. This is going to be here, and we have drinks here. So we've got our little icons and we've got our main courses here. We're going to have to move that over a little bit too because that's kind of a larger name. And then payment, our payment icon here. So it's starting to come together, and we got a new order and this one, save order. I don't think we need this icon we don't need. All right, so we're good to go. We have everything here. Now it's starting to come together. So let's line it up and make sure that we have everything. We're gonna use something called application caller. And what that's gonna do is when we click pizza, I want a pizza to go in the category. So the best way to do that is to name these individual shapes before I group them. Because when I click on it, I want the word pizza to show up inside our menu. What I want to do is I want to run an advanced filter. So I want to know only the pizza categories, and that pizza category is going to go right here into K3. So what I need to do is I need to name each individual shape, and preferably before we group them. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is I want to bring out the shapes. Now if I try this, watch what happens. I want to rename this pizza, which is correct, but I also want to name the icon. But if I try that, PI, it's going to refer right back to the shape. Notice that? Because I've done it. So what's the best way to do that is to use this selection pane here and then click on the icon here and make sure that we name that icon. We locate it here and name that pizza as well. I want them both to have the same name. Generally we don't, but I want them both pizza, because that's whether a user clicks on this or this, we need to send the name of that shape to right here. I want to send the name of the shape right here into K3. So to do that, we want to make sure they both have the same name. We're going to do the same thing with everything. So I'm going to do that right now, and then I'll come right back because you don't need to watch me name each one of these, otherwise it's kind of boring for you. Okay, if we click on here and we see we've now named everything, and what I want to do now is group them. So I'm going to have my selection tool here, and then I'm just going to start grouping each one. I want to make sure that they're grouped in together. So I'm just going to highlight, or you could also hold the control and click each one of them. So each one is going to be grouped. Now, naming the group isn't critical, but it's always helpful to name it so that when you look on your shapes, you can easily see which is which. And so what we'll do is we'll do that, since I love to develop proper applications. I'm going to name each group, and I'm just going to call this, in this case, pizza group. However, it's not as critical as the individual names, but it's nice when you look at that and you know it. Now, here's the critical thing. The most important thing is each part, that's the icon, and the shape inside must be named the exact name as the categories here, pizza, if there's any misspelling, because it's that name that's going to help us with our advanced filter. So I just want to make sure that's what, and of course this, we'll just call this salad group. And then I'll go ahead and do the rest. Okay, now each group is independently named, so that's going to help us as we recognize what shapes are what. Okay, so now let's group in these. Now we also want to have the same thing here, the same idea. I want to have every name that represents a dine-in, takeaway, or new delivery, same exact thing. So I want to do that, because that's going to help us when we dine in exactly as we want it inside the category. And the same thing for our shape here, new takeaway, and we'll just call this take away, and I want this called delivery. That way we can send that directly to the order. The name is going to go to the order, delivery. In fact, the same macro is for all 7 of these. Same exact macro. It's going to be really easy. We're going to call that load. Okay, so let me update the icons also. Remember, not just the shapes, but the icons have to have the same name as well. So we're going to call that dine in. And then this macro, we're going to call it take away. It's okay if it can have a space. That's no problem. Just locate that on our shapes and call that take away. And the same thing for delivery. I want that delivery icon also. So we'll just go locate it, the highlighted one, and then we'll just change it to delivery. Okay, once we group them, also going to group them here using the control is another way. And then just group it here. holding the control down, clicking the group, and doing the same thing here, control and then grouping. Okay, all right, and again, we can name these two if we want to, but the groups is not as critical as the individual shapes. We want to make sure, let's just double check that we have the same names. Dine in, notice this one is not done, so we want to make sure we do that as the same. Dine in, making sure it's exactly the same. We'll take a look at the takeaway. Make sure that one has the same names on both the icon and the shape, and also on the delivery. Here, let's take a look at that one. We can confirm that that one has the same name. Okay, good. So we're done with that. And now let's take a look. What I want to do now, it's going to have some fun. Let's load up those pictures. We're going to come with this a little bit later on. So what do I want to do with this? I want to have the order here. Let's color the lines that we want to show so we know what's going to be going on. Basically, on let's start out at around P5 and go all the way to U. And let's just highlight those. Let's put that in white just for now, just so we can recognize exactly what we're going to be using as a background. And here I want to know the table, and let's move these. We're not going to use these just yet, so let's move this group. In fact, let's create that, bring it up a little bit so we know the placing, and I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to call that send group, send to group. So I'm going to click both of them, and then what I'm going to group them and then call it send to group. So that way we can hide or show this send to group, and I'll just put it over here for now. But so I want to track, I want to know what table, I want to know when it was ordered on. I also want to know the order number. We can just put number because that's a small area. And the type is going to be delivery, takeaway, or dine in. And I also want to know the staff or the server. And then let's move it over a little bit here so you can see it. And we can merge and center this one because we have a little bit larger area. And I'm going to drop this down for a while. And then let's center them in there and make them bold. And let's put some formatting around that because I want that to be the top of the order. So I'm going to choose this color, which is our accent color, and just go all the way around for now. And so basically what I want to have is the information here, and then I want to have another header here. This one would be product. I want to know what product. And then this would be quantity. What's the quantity? How many? And then the price. So we could just put the price or each, either way, and then total here. Okay, so again, the same thing here I want to do here. Then we're going to make it in the middle and make it bold, and that looks good. And then just put some borders around it, format the cells, and I can just copy the formats right here, and we'll just place the formats right here. So I'm going to paste those formats, paste special, and then paste the formats. That's another way of doing it. Okay, so we have the same format. I'll merge and center this one. That's what I want. Let's make those a little bit bigger because it's a little bit small on those. So we'll go to 12 on that font so we can clearly see it. And then I'm going to give this just a light blue color so it's a contrasting color, something about right here. Okay, so again, what I want here is I want to place the information in here. I'm going to merge and center this one. This is going to be our staff, merge and center, and then I guess I can left justify it. Now I've created a named range. Let's take a look at some of those as we fill it in. But before I do, let me just put some borders around here so it's clear. Format those cells. I'm going to make the top line dotted so we know, and then the center is going to be, well, let's just do a double. I like the double line on the borders. Okay, so basically what I have, we'll start out with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the staff here, the type here, and as we click the delivery, the new order is going to be put in the type. I think that's going to really be helpful. Our first product is going to go right here, and if there's any details, and then I'm going to put this here and this here so we can edit the item or we can remove the item, and then as we select it's going to appear here. So that's going to be a really nice feature. Okay, so let's give this a little bit of a color as we start to build out. This is our receipt. This will be printed to the kitchen or perhaps printed to the local printer. Now I have created a named range with staff and a server. Let's take a look at that under the formulas name manager, and it's a dynamic name range. So when I click staff and tab over, we're going to see that it's offset so that as we add names, it's going to build out this list. Offset using the admin, that's in B4, starting it, and then what we're going to do is we're going to count. In this case, it's 4 But as we add them, we're going to use count A. So we're counting every single cell with a value between B4 and B23. And what that's going to do, in that case, it's 5. So we're going to use offset. That means our range is going to be from B4, in this case, to B7. So as we add staff, it's going to grow. And I can take that named range and I can use a data validation right here to use a drop-down list. So when we click data and then data validation, and then all I need to do is click list here, and then just equals staff, and that's going to put our staff right here. Okay, great. So now we have a drop-down list of staff, which is nice. That's the way I want it. And what else do we want to do? I want to make sure to put a table, and the products are going to go here. The detail, the quantity, good. So we've got that done. As we build out our receipt, it's going to go here. We'll use more conditional formatting in the future, but I'll show you how that works. What I'd like to do right now is load some of the pictures in and see how we can load it, because that's kind of really exciting. I want to have rows. We're going to have 5 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So actually 5 columns, and then the rows are going to go down here. So maybe we'll start out in row, let's say row 4. The pictures are going to start in row 4, and then we'll skip, and then maybe 9. Then our second row is going to start in 9, and then we'll skip another 5 and maybe 14. That should be sufficient. So as we build out, we have a lot of rows. So let's build a macro. So what I want to do basically is when the user clicks on a category here, I want to assign a macro. And that macro is going to load all the pictures associated with that category. We have pictures. In fact, I've got a lot of pictures in a folder. Let's just take a look at that. So just we see what pictures we have. I've got them right here into our folder. So there's food there. I've got tons and tons of pictures here, and that's going to help us. Those are the same pictures that I've linked in our database. So when we look in our menu items here, we see that everything has a picture file path. Those are linked to all the pictures. Okay, I'm going to include those pictures with you so you can experiment and make sure you build out your own file path. This path would only work for me, so you want to use your own file path when you're testing these. I'll include the icons, the pictures, the application, everything for free. I offer tons and tons of value because I want to make sure you're learning, and I appreciate all your help, of course. All right, so the pictures are going to be there, but let's load those pictures in. So what I want to do is I want to take that category. I want to determine the last row. In this case, the last row is 59. I'm going to run it through an advanced filter, and that advanced filter is going to be right here in K2. So I'm going to put the category here. Then all the results are going to be here. Then I'm going to loop through all of the results, and I'm going to take the pictures, and I'm going to take the name, and I want to displayed in a picture and in there. So I want the picture displayed in a specific size, and I want the name displayed in a shape here. So we're going to write a macro to do just that. So let's get on that right now, and that's going to be called that category load. So let's go into the VBA here. If you don't have your VBA already, you can of course get to it from the developer and the Visual Basic here. Otherwise, you can also click File and Options if you don't see that available, and click on the Customize ribbon and make sure you have Developer selected here. There's also a shortcut to get to in the VBA, and that's Alt F11. Alt F11 will get you there. So just simply Alt and then F11 will get you right into there. Now I've created a few modules, but there's nothing in here except for application macros, and we're going to go over that. That's the only thing that we're not going to be writing. Everything else is simply blank modules. Okay, this is going to help us. This kind of keep us on the straight and narrow, save a little bit of time. These trainings are already long enough, so I try to do as much as I can in advance and still make sure you understand the full context of the training. So right now we're going to call this category load. I want to load those categories on our purchase order screen. So that is the macro that we're going to create right now. We're going to call that category load category. So sub load category, and I need to dimension a bunch of variables. So let's start out with that. We're going to dimension the category. I need to know that category as a string. That's going to be helpful. Dimension category as string, and I also want to know the picture path. That's the path of that. That's going to be a string as well, as string. And I also want to know the picture path, the path of that picture, as also a string. And what else do I want to know? I want to know the item ID. The item ID is a string, as a string. We have the item IDs already set up. Just want to let you know what we have by item IDs. That's located right here in the first column. It's called item ID. This is our item ID. They're all basically string, and it goes all the way down. They're automated. So feel free to add to those if you'd like. Okay, continuing on, what else do I need? Now that I've got all my string variables, I want to know the menu item. We're going to need to create a brand new menu item, and we want to delete anyone. So we're going to need to dimension the menu item as a shape. Dimension menu item as a shape. Okay, and also I want to make sure that we need to run through the columns. I need to keep track of what column and row. As we're adding shapes, I want to know what column we're on and what row we're on. So that's really important. So we're going to need to dimension the column and the row. So dimension the menu column as long, because it's a whole number, and also the menu row as long. That's important. And I also want to know the last item row. Remember, we're running an advanced filter, so we need to know the last item row as long as well. Okay, what else? I want to know the last result row. Remember, our results, our category, we're going to run through all the categories, and we need to know what the results are. So I need to not only know what the last results of our row here, in fact, that's it would look like this, something like this. Here's our results. I need to know the last row, and I need to run through our categories all the way, our result row, starting from 3 all the way to the last one as we build and out. So we need to run through that as well. So we need to make those as long too. So that means the last result row as long, and also I need to loop through the result row, so the result row as long. Okay, great. That's it for our dimensions, and we're going to be focused primarily on sheet 1. So let's start that out with sheet 1. Okay, what do we want to do? The first thing I want to do, I want to make sure that I understand what the category is. So the category is equal to the application dot color. Now keep this in mind. If you try to run this macro, like if I try to run this macro here, it's going to have an error. And why is that? Because you didn't call anything. Remember, this means whatever shape you clicked, whatever the name of the shape you clicked. We didn't click a shape, right? We just tried to run it from here. So keep that in mind. This only works when you actually click a shape. This application color is whatever the name of the shape that you clicked. So notice it's an error, but as soon as you click a shape, it's going to keep that in mind. So remember, this is only going to know. So if we assign this, if we assign it to a shape here, the name of the shape, not the name of the group, not the name of the group. We can only assign macros. Even if I assign a macro to this group, what that's going to do is it's going to really assign a macro to this shape and this shape. So notice both of those shapes have the same name. So that is our application color. Our application color is pizza here or pizza here. So only when we assign that macro to this shape does it work. So keep that in mind. It won't work if you try to run it from the code. Okay, so this is our category name. And also, what else do we need? I also want to make sure that we have, I want to put that category in K3. That's our criteria. Remember, if we look inside our sheet 2, let's take a look at that. I need to run it. So K3 is where we're going to put our criteria. Then we can run our advanced filter. So let's do that now. Sheet 2.range K3.value equals category. All right, that's going to place our category name. And so what I want to do now is I got to delete all the shapes from our sheet. If there was already a category loaded here, if there was already something else here, I really need to remove everything here. But obviously what I need to do is I need to remove all of the shapes. I can't remove every shape on the sheet. I can only remove shapes that are here in this area, which is basically all of the previous categories. So how do we do that? Well, what we do is we name these shapes, give them very specific names that are very different than any of these names here. So that way we only delete shapes with a specific name. So how can we do that? So we can run, first thing we want to do is I want to run a loop for every single shape inside that specific sheet. So we can use a loop. So let's do something like this. For each, remember we've defined menu items as shapes, so we can do that. For each menu item in dot shapes, that means every shape in the sheet, and make sure you close your loop always. So next menu item. Okay, so now we know. So now we're going to loop through all the shapes. The first thing I want to do is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my shapes include the name item. item. Make sure nothing else has the word item in it. Only our shapes are going to include the word item. So that's going to be our differentiating factor. Our shapes are going to include the word item. So how can we do that? If we got to check if the name in string menu item dot name, and then we're looking for the word item. Item is greater than 0. That means it's found. Then what do we want to do? Then delete it. Then menu item dot delete. That's going to delete the shape because it contains the word item. You want to make sure when you use differentiating that no other shape on your sheet includes the word item, because that's going to be the difference. Okay, so what we're going to do is when we create these shapes, we're going to make sure that item is included. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call them by their item ID, item 1, item 2. That is how I know which ones to add. So let's do that now. Okay, now that we've deleted all the shapes on the item, now we're ready to run our advanced filter. So what I need to do for our advanced filter on sheet 2, which is where all items are, I need to determine the last row. So what is that? We've already defined it as long. Last item row is equal to, and that's an automated using auto hotkey. Okay, it's a free software that's going to help me automate. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the last row on sheet 2, column A. And that's going to give me, that's the last item row, last item row. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure I don't want to run an advanced filter if there's no data. If this, our last item row in this case is 59, but if it's less than 3, then we need to skip everything out. Otherwise, it's going to create a bug. So to do that, we can just run a little bit of a check. If the last item row is less than 3, then go to no items. And then I'm going to put no items way down here. No items with a colon. And now everything's going to get built inside here. Okay, so assuming that the rows are greater, the last is greater than 3, then, or 3 or greater, in that case we can continue on. So now we can run our advanced filter. Sheet, and let's drop this down so we can take a look at sheet 2 as well. Okay, sheet 2 dot range A, right? A2 is where I start, A2 through all the way our last column, in this case is G, and the last item row dot advanced filter. We're copying it to another location, and we want the criteria range colon equals to also sheet 2 dot range, and remember what it was, K2 and K3, K2 through K3. We must include the header as well. Okay, let's just take a look at that right in here. K2 through K3. That's our criteria. Okay, and then we want the results in N2 through T2. So let's write the results right now. So we would do copy to range. We're copying that colon equals to sheet 2. Where do we want that? Range. We want it in N2 through T2. N2 through T2. Okay, we don't need dot value or anything like that. Then the last one is unique colon equals, we'll put false on this one, but true is fine. Okay, so unique equals false. So that's it. That's our advanced filter. Let's just double check that. Let me go through that again because it's a longer sheet 2. A2 through G2. And remember, when you're running these advanced filters, the header rows, the names must be exactly like our original data. Must be the same. Okay, it's better just to copy and paste the values or copy and paste everything, making sure that it's exactly the same. We want them to be the same. So our results are going to go here. Next up in our code, I'm going to determine the last row of our results. And assuming that that row is greater than 3, then I can loop through all of them. So let's do that right now inside our code. The last result row is equal to, and then XLR. I'm just going to automate that. That's my automated, again, sheet 2, but this time we're going to be focused on column N, right? Because that's our required field N. I'm going to get the last row in N. Now we just need to run a check. If the last result row is less than 3, remember there's no item, less than 3, then go to no items. Okay, it's going to skip everything. There's nothing to bring over, there's nothing to loop through if we don't have any items. So now we're ready to loop through. Now we're ready to run our loop. We're going to go again. We're going to start in row 3 and go all the way to our last row by adding the information, adding the names, and adding the pictures. And we're going to be placing them in. So how do we do that? Let's continue on. Okay, so we've made sure that there is data and we've continued on. So now what I want to do is I want to set the initial menu column, initial menu row. I'm going to put the column, this is going to be our first place. So our row is going to be 4. Our column is going to be 6. So we're going to set those two. Let's set those up initially, and then we're going to increase them as we move on. So our menu column is equal to 6. Initial menu column, it'll grow. Menu row is equal to 4. And that's set the initial menu row. Okay, all right, so we've got that. Let's make that the same. Okay, set initial now that we have those, now we're ready to run our loop. We're going to run our loop through our results on sheet 2 right here, starting in 3 going all the way down. So let's start our loop. For result row, we've defined result row up here, right here. So we've right here is result. So we have that. For result row is equal to, starting at 3 and going to the last result row. The first thing we want to do is close our loop. Next result row. Now that we've closed our loop, now we continue on. We want the picture path, right? What is the picture path? It's located in column T, right? So picture path, it's already defined as a string, equals sheet 2.range T, starting with T, and what? And the result row dot value. That is our picture path. But we need to make sure we need to run a few checks just to make sure everything's okay. So the first thing I also want to define the item ID. That's important too. So let's do that right now. Item ID, that's also the string. And we can just copy and paste this here because we're going to use nearly, except our picture, our item ID is located in column N. Column N is our item ID. So now let's just define that, comment that out, item ID. So we've got our picture path, we've got our item ID, and I also, of course, now we're ready to go. I think we're ready to go. So what I want to do first is I want to check to see if we have any problems. If this is empty, if the picture path is empty, or maybe it's incorrect. Like if I use this link, it's going to be incorrect for you, but I want to account for that. If it's an incorrect file path or it's a missing file path, I want to make sure to check for both of those. So let's take a look at that. If the directory of the picture path, VB directory, is equal to empty or the picture path, so we've accounted for it being incorrect, but what if it's missing? Or picture path equals empty, then what do I want to do? Then I want to use a default picture, right? Remember we set a default picture here. Let's take a look at that here. And let's call that, let's give that a name. We need to do that. That's important. I'm going to call that default picture. Just call it default pic. And then I also want to name this. I want to call this default description. Default description. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. What I want to do is I want to copy this and I want to place it here, and I want to copy this and I want to put the description in there. So that's important. So continuing on with our code. So if one of those two, if the file path is incorrect or the picture path is missing, then what do I want to do? I want to use the default picture. So how do we do that? Dot shapes, because we have it now. Dot, because we're already on sheet 1. Default, that's the name we just gave it. Default pic. Dot, what do I want to do? I want to duplicate it, but I want to give it a name. Dot name, and what is it? What is the name I want to give it? Is equal to pic and what? And the item ID. Okay, because we've already defined the item ID right here, so I want to give it that distinct, very distinct name so that we can remove it later on. Okay, else, what else? Else, then the picture actually exists. If the picture exists and it's a correct path, then let's do that. Then in that case, what I want to do is I want to insert the picture. So again, dot pictures in this case. What I want to do, I want to insert the picture. Dot insert. And what do I want to insert? I want to insert the picture path. That's the path of the picture. And then I want to give it a name. Dot name equal to, again, I'm going to give it the same exact name. Picture and of course the item ID. So they're both gonna have the same name. Either one's gonna have the same name, and that's what I want. So that's always gonna be the same. All right, so now we've added the picture onto our sheet. So what I want now, I need to work with the default description. So we've created the default description. So what I want to do is I want to duplicate this, and then instead of the words in here, I want to give it to whatever the name is. In this case, I want to give it the name. I want to change the name. So how do we do that? In that case, well, let's do that. Dot shapes default description dot duplicate. Remember, we're going to duplicate it now. Dot name, give it a name. This time let's call it equals, let's call it description, and the item ID description and the item ID. So that's got a very distinct and unique name for each one. Description. All right, so now we've created that. So what else do we want to do? Now what I want to do is I want to set the text name for that. This description, all we've done is duplicate it, right? But I want to give it the name. I want to put this name inside the description. How can we do that? Let's do it here. Dot shapes. Now we know the name we're working on. We've given it this name. What is the name? The name is this right here. So we just have to copy this. Now we can work with that shape. Dot shapes, item ID. What do I want to do? I want to give it the text. So that's text frame 2. In this case, dot text range. And what is that text range? Dot text, okay, is equal to basically whatever is in P. So sheet 2 dot range P and the result row. That's going to give it the name of our dot value of our product or whatever it is. So let's just put that name, product name. Okay, so we've got the product name and a shape, and now what I want to do is I want to position it. Okay, so I've got the picture and I've got the description. Now I got to position it, right? We've created, at this point, we've created one picture and one name, and we've set it all up, but it's just the size and the position is I want to position it really right here, and then I want to move, and then I want to position it here, and then next and next. So how do we do that? So let's write that in the code here. Let's do set position of shapes. Okay, and so what is that position? With dot shapes, and what shapes? We're focused on the description and the item name. In this case, let's do pick in the item pick. We're going to focus on the picture first, and then the description pick and the item ID. That's the one we're going to focus on for a while. With that, I want to set that. How do we do that? The left position is going to be equal to sheet 1. Why do I have to call out sheet 1 right now when I didn't have to before? Because now we're focused on with shape, so we need to specifically call out sheet 1. Dot cells. Why am I using dot cells? Because both the column and the row are based on value, so we want to use dot cells. What is the row? It's the menu row. What is the column? Menu column. Dot left, so that's the left position of that. And what about the top position? Top position is going to be very much the same. So dot top, again, let's just copy this and put dot top equals right here, equals, and then just put dot top. Okay, so now we have the position. Let's lock the aspect ratio and put that as false. Lock aspect ratio equals false. Okay. In that case, because I don't necessarily want it, because I want it very, very specific width and very specific height. And hopefully you've created pictures that have a good specific height. I have. Okay, so we're going to give it, I want to give it a very specific width. I want to give it a width of exactly this column width. I want to give it, I want to put everything in a perfect grid. So to do that, I'm going to give it the exact column width. Whatever the column width here is, that's what I want. That way, if you increase the column width, it stays in the same grid. It's a really nice feature. So how do we do that? Dot width is equal to what? The same thing. Basically, it's going to be the width of whatever this is here. So all we have to do is copy this and just put equals dot width. So it's going to be width of that column. The width of the shape is going to be the width of the column pretty easily. What about the height? Dot height. I want to set a very specific height. With my test, I think 48 worked perfect. So 48 is pretty good. And then what I want to do is I want to assign a macro to it, right? Because when I click on that shape, I want to add it to the menu. So that means I got to assign a macro to it. So how do we do that? We can use dot on action. So dot on action. And what is the macro? Well, I'm going to create a macro in the future, very soon actually. So we're going to call that item and then call it add to ordered. So that's, I'm gonna have to remember that, make sure that I create that macro with that name, item add to order. That's it. That's all I need to do as far as the picture. So now we need to do almost the same thing with the shapes. So with the description. So let's copy this, but now we're going to focus on the description. The only difference is going to be, obviously it's going to be a position slightly different. It's not going to have the same position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. But in this case, we're focused on description. So I've copied and pasted that. This time we're focused on the description. And what do we want to do with it? In this case, what I want to do is I want to put the top, but obviously it can't be the same top, but it has to be lower. But how much lower? Well, exactly the height of our shape. It's going to be that much lower. So the top position is going to be the top position plus 48. Okay, so the top position of the description is going to be farther down, right below, right directly below it. And then the same thing, I want to give it the same macro. So if they click on the description or they click on the picture, the same thing is going to happen. Okay, good. I'm glad we got that done. So now we've positioned it. And now what I want to do is I want to take those two shapes and I want to give them a group. I want to group them together so they stay together. So the description and the picture should have a group. So how do we do that? Dot shapes. Again, what I want to do in this case, dot range. And then I want to create a range, not that range, but I want to create an array for that. Array. And what kind of array do I want? First thing I want to do is, again, I want to create an array based on the two names. Based on this name here, we're going to copy this based on this name right here, based on pick and item ID right here, and based on description item ID. So that's the two, not value. So that's one, right? What about the other one? The other one I want to create is based on the description. So all we need to do is copy and paste and this time put description. So I'm going to create an array based on those two items, the picture and the item ID and the description item ID. And what I want to do with that, I want to dot group it. I want to group those two, and I want to give it a name on that group, very, very specific. So it's going to be equal to item ID and the word group. So the word group. So that's very specific, very different, but it also has item ID and the group. Great. So now I've done it. What else do I need to do? Now I want to make sure to give it the same name. It's very important that we give the name of each shape, the name of this shape. We haven't named them yet, and the name of this shape, very unique name. So how can we do that? Let's do that right now. Dot shapes pick and item ID dot name. What is the name? It's going to be the item ID equals the item ID, because why? That item ID, remember that item ID is what we're going to use to be able to look up the item and give us all the information to put it right in here. So that's called item ID. And I want to do the same thing for the description. So we're going to copy this and just change it from the words pick to description. So that's going to give us the same name for the picture and the description, but all I need to do is just change this to the description. Okay, so now they both have the same name. But what do I want to do now? Now we're done. We're done with the first one, but I have to loop through all of them. So what do I have to do? I've got to move the column over 2. Then I've got to move it over 2. But what if we're on the last column? Then I got to drop the row down by 5 because I want to put the first one in 4 and the second row starting in 9. So how can we write that up? Well, we can do that here. If the menu column, we're going to start at 6, 8, 12, and then 14. So that's going to be if the menu column equals 14, then what do I want to do? Then we need to go to the row below. Then menu column is going to revert back to 6 equals 6, and the menu row is going to be plus 5. Menu row, we're going to add 5. So equals menu row plus 5. Okay, but what if the menu column is not 14? Else, in that case, all I want to do is increase the menu column by 2, right? We want to go from 6, column 6, to column 8, to column 10, to column 12, and the last one 14. And when it gets to 14, we're going to drop the row from row 4 to row 9. And continue on again. That's all we're going to do on that. So let's do that. Else the menu column equals menu column plus 2. So that's it. That's all we needed to do to write that. And that's pretty much it. So now we have no items here. And let's take a look at this. Is going to be a long training, so you might have to watch it in 2 parts. All right. Hopefully I don't lose my breath, but we'll do great. I'm excited to bring this to you. No more multi-parts for you. You guys don't watch parts 2 and 3, so that means I'm just going to create really long videos. Lots and lots of value. That's what you get. All right. I want to make sure you love them. They won't all be very long, but some of them. This one, I'm just so excited to bring you these amazing applications. If they're going to be long, they're going to be long. Okay. All right. Moving on. So now we've pretty much done everything. I'm going to save our work. Always save your work, especially before running a macro. That's critical. And so now what I want to do is I want to take this and I'm going to assign that to every single button. So again, all I need to do is group them. And then what we're going to do is we can unclick that. Now right click and we're going to assign a macro. We can assign the same macro. Click here, load category. See if we run into bugs, probably a few or so. Let's take a look. Probably default. Okay, misspelled that. Default description. That's the name of them. Double check. The best thing to do here is to reset your code, right? Reset your code. Always the best thing to do is sometimes just copy and paste it. I think I spelled it right now. Default description, and then paste it right in here. That ensures that you've got the absolute. Okay, so let's continue on with the code. And again, if we try to run it from here, it's going to bug out because remember we're using application caller. We always have to run it from our shapes here. There we go. We fixed the bug. Oh, doesn't that look nice? So you see how fast and great that works? This one's kind of a little bit big here, isn't it? A little bit big on that. We got to set the height on the art. We want to set the height on that solid. So let's set the height on our description. Make sure that then that's been set because it's a little bit too big. I want the height set on our description to be pretty much basically 0.4. So I want to set. Let's set the height to make sure it doesn't grow like that. So we can move in under our description here. Let's say shapes default description. This is the picture. That looks okay. But our description, what I want to do is I want to set the height. We've got the height. This is too much. We don't need that, right? That's only for our picture. Let's erase that. Now let's try it. Perfect. That's good. Might be a little bit small. Let's take a look. Especially, I think it's nice. It's a little bit too small. Notice we need a little bit bigger on here. So let's set the height on that to something that's going to automatically encompass 2 different rows. So we need to make sure that we have enough rows first so we can have that. I'll make sure I spelled spaghetti right. All right, so we've got that there. Let's take a look at that so I don't have to look at the misspellings. So we've got pasta, we've got tons of great things. Let's take a look at spaghetti, not spaghetti, although it probably would be good. Spaghetti, misspelled it twice. Nice. Okay, spaghetti, I think that's right. All right, so we can just copy this, and I don't have any specific descriptions other than what I've had there, so I think we're good to go on that. So it's automatically, we just need to update let's zoom in a little bit. We just need to update the vertical on there and the width on that. So we want to make sure we set the width and the vertical and put it up. What I want to do is I want to format this shape a little bit and just remove the text. We don't need the extra spacing on that because we want to fit in all the text. So let's remove that extra text padding, and I also want to get rid of the border too. We don't need any line on that. Let's take a look at that. That should help it a little bit, but I want to, there we go. So now what I see, notice we removed it, and now we've managed to fit in everything just the way we want it there. I think that looks really good. Okay, excellent. So now what I want to do is I want to click on here and I want to add that to the menu. So how can we do that? Let's create a macro for that. Remember, we've assigned a macro to these shapes here. We've assigned it. Let's take a look at the macro to make sure that that's been click assign macro. And remember, when we click on the group, that's not going to help us. But when we click on the individual item and right click and click assign macro, we see item add to order. So that's the macro that I want to create. I want to create that. And what I want to do is I want to find the first available row and add that item here to our receipt. However, if that product has already been added, I want to increase the quantity. So we need to run a check. So how can we do that? Let's create that macro right now. Okay, so into the code we go. Let's bring this up, and I'm going to call this item macro. So what do I want to do? I want to basically add, it's relatively simple, add the item to the menu. If it doesn't exist, if it does exist, increase the quantity. Okay, let's go ahead and create this macro. Sub item add to order. We need to dimension a few variables here. Dimension the selected row as long and the item row as long. Item row as long. And also the item name. Dimension the item name as a string. And also we're going to look for the item. We need to find it. So let's dimension the found item as a range. Okay, moving on. With sheet 1, still focused on sheet 1, here, what do we want to do? I want to put whatever the caller is. The caller would be whatever the name is when we select a specific item 2, right? Notice that we have the item 2, or in this case, if we select inside the individual item 3, I want to take that and I want to put it inside here. In fact, I want to build out a few items here to make sure that we have everything else. Let's do that. New order. I want to know if that's true or false. Let's just put it true for now. I also want to know the selected item ID. I want to put that in here. So item 1 or item 2, whatever it is, I want to put that in B2. Also, I want to know the item row. What row have we selected? And I also want to know the order row, the row of the order that we're on, right? We're tracking different orders, order row. And I want to know the selected row. What is the selected row if the user selects a row? And in 6, I also want to know the next order ID. So as we keep track of them, I want to know that. So how do we do it? Let's color these a little bit differently so we can differentiate between them. I'm going to add borders around them all, and then I'm going to give them just a little bit of an orange look so we can differentiate it. That's all we need to know to track this information, but I'm going to need a few different formulas here. So let's say we have a specific order. Where's our order going to go? Our order number is going to go right here, order number 1. But what I want to know is what's the row of that order. I want to know the row. We've already defined a named range on here. So let's take a look at that under the formulas name manager, and we have order number here. Tab over that and we can see that it's all of our order numbers here. So I want to know what row is on. Notice our first one starts on row 3. So how do we do that? Well, we can use a if error and then a match. So equals if error in case it's not found, match, what are we going to look for? I'm looking up this order number right here located in R4, and I'm going to look up the array. What is it? Order number, the one that I just showed you, the name range. I want an exact match, so that's 0. What if it's not found? If it's not found, I just want double quotes. But remember, it doesn't start on row 1, it starts on row 3, so I want to make sure to add 2, right? Because order number 1 is starting at row 3 right here, so we want to make sure to add 2. Okay, so now we know. Let's left justify that so we can see exactly. So we also want to know the item row that I'm going to put in, and also I want to know the next order ID, right? The next order, you can use max for that, equals if error, just in case there's no orders. What is the next one, the next available one? We're going to use max for that. Order number, I want the maximum of all the order numbers plus 1. But what if there are no orders? In that case, just start it out at 1. Okay, so let's make sure that that works. It's showing 4 right now. We currently have 3 in our orders, so the next one would be 4, so we know it's working correctly. Okay, so we've got that. We've got everything we need pretty much here. We're going to build this out. I'm going to put some conditional formatting for the selected row so we know what, like selected item. So when I select one of these items, I want that item ID to go right into B2. So let's write that up right now. Dot range B2 dot value equals application caller. Application dot caller. That's the name of the shape that called it. Okay, next up, what I want to make sure is that we also want to know the row of this item. How do I know what row it is? So let's say this is item 1, right? Item 1 is let's say we're going to put it in B2, right? Let's say we select this and it goes to item 1. How do we know? Item 1 is located where? It's located in row 3. So let's get that row, calculate that row through that. So we can do that right here using a very similar formula, equals if error. We're going to put a match on that. What am I matching? I'm going to look up this right here in B2. And of course, I'm going to look it up in item ID, and I want an exact match. And I want to add 2. But what if it's not found? I'm going to double quotes. Okay, so that's going to put our item row. If we change this to item 3, in this case, it's going to change to 5. That's what I want, right? Because if we look in our menu items and we see item 3, we see it's in row 5. So that's what I want. So good. So that means as soon as we click this shape, the item, whatever that shape is, going to tell us what row that shape is and what row that item is. That's what I want. So that's going to help us out. Okay, so but I want to make sure that we actually have a row number so we can put a credit. If dot range B3, which is our row number, if it equals empty, that means something is wrong. They haven't selected the right item, or maybe the item doesn't exist anymore or something like that. Then what do we want to do? Let's let the user know. Message box please select an item to add, just to let them know. And there's nothing we can do, so we're going to exit the sub because we can't move forward if we don't have a proper item. Okay, but assuming that we do have a proper item, we can now move forward. So what's the next step? What do I want to do? I want to get that item row. We've already defined it here as long, but I want to put that into a variable. So item row is equal to whatever's in B3. So we can just copy that and just put it right in here. Item row is equal to B3 and comment that out. We'll call this the item row, although it's self-explanatory. Next up, now that we have the item, I want to know the item name. Item name is really important because I want to know the item name. Where's the item name located? That's located in column C. So let's pull that out. Let's get that out. We know the item row and we know the name is in C, so we can do that. So the item name, we've already defined it as a string. Item name is equal to sheet 2, where item is located, range C, and the item row dot value. And this is value dot, and this would be the item name. Now we have the item name. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to clear any totals temporarily if there might be some totals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a range, and let's do that now just so we understand that. I want to create it. Basically what I want to do at some point, I want to create totals. And what's that going to look like? Sub total, but I want to place it dynamically, and then we'll have the tax next, and I also want to know the payment, if there's a payment that's been made. And then up here I'm going to put in the discount here, and then I want to have, next up I want to have the total, and then also I want to have the change. If they're change, if they've paid, what is their change based on their payment? So that's going to be our total. And I also want to differentiate between this type of row and where the products are, because we're going to use conditional formatting. So I'm going to use something like a T here to differentiate it for these three. So what I want to do basically is I want to take this information right here and I want to place it one row. Like if the last row is here, let's say our pizza's here, right? I want to put our totals right here, but I want to place it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this range. I'm going to place it somewhere else, and then I'm just going to bring it in here and paste it down here. So I'm going to put it over here probably, and let's move these over. Let's just move these over here for now. Put them over here. We don't need them. So I'm going to put them somewhere like X5, and I'm going to paste the values here. So I've got everything here, and what I want to do is I want to create a named range for this. That way we can easily refer to it. So what is that named range? Let's just call it total range. Okay, so now anytime we need to refer to it, so I can copy. So what I want to do is I want to basically copy this in and just bring it wherever we want and paste the values here. That way it's going to be pasted in here. So we want to, basically what I want to do is I want to do that because it's dynamic. We don't know how many rows. So let's continue on with our code. Now that we understand that, so what I want to do is I want to set the total range. And what I want to do is I want to find T. So I want to clear any totals temporarily, meaning as we add items here, I want to clear the totals, clear any of the totals that might be here. So how do we do that? We look for that T here and we find if there's the T. So for example, let's paste that back in here so that I can help you understand that. So we paste our totals in here, and what I want to do is I want to look for the T here. That's going to tell us our total, and then just clear it out and then place it back in here, because I want that total to keep dropping down the totals as we build out this receipt. So we need to find the first T. So how can we do that? Inside our code, let's take a look at that. So let's put a note here. So clear any totals temporarily if they exist. If they exist on saved orders. Okay, so how do we find that? So we have a total range. So let's dimension the total range. We want to define that total range as range. Okay, we're going to set the total range is going to be equal to dot range, and we're looking at column W. That's where we're going to look for that T. W starting in, let's say, row 8 all the way through W 9. I just need to look to see if it exists. And we're going to find, I'm going to use dot find, not value, dot find, and then I'm looking for the T. And if it's found, just clear it out. So how do we do that? If not total range is nothing, that means it's found nothing, then dot range P, so basically if it's found, let's say if it's found here on row W, then what I want to do is I want to take P and whatever row it's found on and go 3 rows down and just clear it out. I just want to clear it out temporarily. So we can do that with the following lines of code. Dot range P, starting at P because that's our first column, and what is the row? The P and the row and the total range dot row and what else? All the way through W, all the way through colon W and the total range row. Remember, it's plus 3 because our total is going to be 3 rows. 3. What do I want to do? I just want to clear that out. Dot clear content. So what that's going to do is just clear the total out. It's going to give us more space to put an item in there. So just going to basically take that, finding it. We're finding it. Let's say we find it on row 15. It's going to clear all the way P15 through W and the third row. In this case, it's 17. Just going to clear it out. That's all that's going to do and allow us to add more items here. So we can continue on with our code. Now that we've cleared totals out, that does it in just one line of code. Okay, now what I want to do, well, I don't want to, what I want to do is when we click an item to add it, I want to check to see if the item exists. If the item exists already, I don't want to add it again. I just want to put the quantity to 2. But if it doesn't exist, I want to find the first available row. But we could have, like, we're going to have, let's say, cheese pizza here, and we might put in some notes like no onions. No onions. So we might have our last row here or our last row P. So we need to check either of these columns to see where the last row is. So let's do that now because we're not sure. So the first thing what I want to do, let's put a note here. Check for existing item and add quantity. Otherwise, add the item. So let's do it. We've already set the range as found item. Let's do that. Set the found item is equal to dot range. It's always going to be in P, so we can look starting in P8 all the way through, let's just say P, because our name's always going to be in column P 9999. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the item. What do we want to find? Dot find, and then what is it? I want to find the item name. That's what I'm looking for. Now that we know what we're looking for, let's see if it's found. So if found item is nothing, then it's not found. Okay, then it's not found. Else found. And if. Okay, so it's a little bit off the screen there. Okay, so we've got 2 conditions. One if it's found, one if it's not found. So let's focus on if it's not found. What do I want to do if it's not found? If it's not found, I want to determine the first available row. The first available row. If P8 here, if this is empty, we know that the first available row is on 8 because it's just starting our brand new order. If it's not a new order, then I need to check either this column or this column to see what is the first available row by checking the last row of the value. So we can do that with this line of code. First, I'm going to check if dot range P8 dot value does not equal empty, then we know we have. Then what I want to look for it. Then the selected row is equal to dot range, and we're going to search a range P8 through Q, and then we'll just use a large number, let's say 999 Q. And what I'm going to use find because it's 2 different columns. Dot find, and what am I looking for? What am I going to look for? Colon equals, I'm looking for any text, so we can use asterisk, comma, and then what I'm going to look after, colon equals, in this case I want to look after dot range P8. Dot range P8, that's the one I'm going to look after, comma, look at, colon equals, I'm going to use XL part, we're just looking for XL part, and then look in, colon equals, I'm going to look at all the values, XL values, comma, and then search order, colon equals XL by rows. That's for sure important. And what about the search direction? Search direction, colon equals XL previous. Okay, I want the search direction previous, and then I want to match the case. Match case is false. That's not so important. equals false. Dot row, I want to look for the row, and then I don't want the last row, I want it +1, so I want the row after that, +1. Let's look at that to see if we spelled everything right. It's a long line of code. We're going to select the rows PA through Q, and we're going to find what? We're going to find any character using the asterisk after range P8. We're looking at Excel part. We're going to look in the values. The search order is going to be by rows. The search direction is going to be previous. Match case is going to be false. And we're going to look for the first. That's going to get us our first available row. Now that we have our first available row, else, what about else? Else P8 is empty. In that case, our selected row, because P8 is empty, our selected row is 8. Its row equals 8. That would be on a new order. In case P8 is empty, we know that 8 is our first available row. Okay, great. So that is if the item's not found, we have our selected row. What do I want to do now? If it's not found, I want to add the information. I want to add all that information. So first thing I want to do is I want to set the selected row. I want to know what row is it. I want to highlight that row. B5 is going to handle that for us. B5 tells us our selected row. So the first thing I want to do is put that row into B5. So let's do that. Dot range B5 dot value equals the selected row. Set selected, because we're going to use conditional formatting. I think this is going to be my longest training ever. Probably. Dot range, what next? Now I want to put the name, the item name in P. Of course, that's got to go dot P and the item, and then the selected row dot value equals the item name. Okay, but what about the quantity? Next up, what else do I need? I want to put the quantity. I want to put the quantity here in column R. I want to put the price, and I want to put the total here. So how can we do that? So let's continue on with our code. So we have P. We already have the item name. Let's put a comment out so it's clear. Item name, although I believe it's clear. Now, what else in R dot range? R, I say we can just copy that. It's a little quicker if we copy and paste that here, including the comment here. And then, so the next one's going to be R. What do I want in R? I want to know the, usually it's going to be just 1, probably the quantity. We'll set the default quantity as 1, and then we can increase it. So, but that's going to go in R, and we'll set that as our quantity. Okay, comment that out as quantity so we know. What else do we have? I want to put in S, I want to put the price. So where's that found? Where's our price? We know our price comes from sheet 2. Sheet 2 dot range. Where in sheet 2 though? It's going to come from a specific column. Remember, our price is located right here in column F. So we know the item row and we know the column, so we can easily place that in right here. Sheet 2 range F and the item row dot value is the item price. That's it. Now all we need to do is put the formula in for our total, and that's going to go in located in T. So we're going to put T, and in this case, what is our formula? It's going to be basically whatever's the quantity times the price. So we can put that inside right here. Quotation equals our quantity is located in R and our selected row. Make sure we use the and sign, and the selected row, and quotation marks, asterisk, meaning times S and the selected row. That's going to get us our total formula. All right, I like that. That looks good. Okay, so we're good to go on that. Else, now what else? So that's all if it's not found, right? If this is not found, right, the item we need to add a new. But what if it's found? In that, if it's found, all I need to do is increase the quantity. So first of all, the selected row is going to be equal to wherever it has been found. Found item dot row. That is the item row. Right? We know actually the selected row. Selected item row. So once it's selected, what do I need to do? All I need to do is determine the quantity, increase the quantity. So how can we do that? Just simply the R, copy this, put it down here, equals whatever it is plus 1. That's going to increase the quantity, by 1. Okay, good. So now we've increased the quantity by 1, and that's it. That's all we have to do if it's found. It's pretty simple there. Okay, what I want to do, I also want to display, now once I put the item in here, I want to display this edit icon in this thread so that the user can add some details. Like for example, if it's here, right, on cheese pizza, right, I want them to click here and to be able to add different items here, different descriptions or different detail for that specific pizza. So let's first of all name this edit icon, and I'm going to name this one too. We're going to call that delete. I also want to be able to remove it. Delete icon. So we've named it, so I want to position those based on that selected row. So we can do that with the following lines of code. With dot shapes edit icon. Okay, what do I want to position left? Dot left, I want to position it. And where do I want to position it? Equals. Basically what I want to do is I want to position it maybe outside and then bring it inside, increment to left. So how can we do that? We can do that simply by sheet 1. We need to refer to sheet 1 again because we're inside the dot shapes with shapes dot range v and selected row dot left minus about 32, right, because we want to subtract minus 32, or dot top, right, I want to put the same. Dot top is going to be basically equal to the range but dot top, so I want to put the top position basically equal to that dot top. Okay, so now we've positioned that, and now what I want to do is I want to make sure it's visible, so we need to make it visible. Dot visible equals ms true. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the delete icon, but I'm not going to put it as far to the left because I want it in a different left position. So with, in this case it's called delete icon, delete icon. So with that one, basically it's going to go, but the left position is going to be different. That's going to be half, so probably about 16. Okay, I want to run another check. If this order's already been saved, I want to add back the totals. Remember, we removed the totals if they were there, so I want to add back the totals if the order's been saved. If it's not been saved yet, we can just keep adding items. So how do we know that? Well, B4 would have a row, right? B4 is going to track our order row, B4 here. So this knows if this is blank, we know that that order hasn't been saved yet. It hasn't been signed a row. Order number 1. So if we're working on order 6, you see B4 is going to be blank because we don't have orders for number 6. We only have 1 through 3. So we can use that and let us know if it's been saved or not. So if B4 is blank, we know it's not been saved. So let's write that in the code. If dot range B4 dot value does not equal empty, then what I want to do is I want to run a macro, and that macro is going to add back the totals because we're going to use those totals. We're going to add them back. So I'm going to then order add totals, and that's the macro to add total information. And I'm going to put that, in fact, let me just put that just so we don't run a break. I'm going to create a macro that's going to have nothing in it into our order load, and we're going to call it sub add totals, and that's it. Just want to make sure because otherwise it's going to create an issue. Okay, so back into the one we created. So now we have that. And I'm going to also make this a little bit faster in a minute, but let's take a look at that. So we're going to go back into there and let's just clear this out here. We don't want anything in here right now for our test. And let's click on a meat and cheese pizza. Let's fix this total range dot row. Okay, it has to be dot row. Continue on. Okay, that looks good. That's what I want. And let's add this. Okay, debug that. We need to get the last row. Let's fix that. All right, it should be values. Okay, continue on. Okay, I think we're good now. So let's take a look. Now it's created. If I click it again, it's going to increase the quantity. That's what I want. Very good. And it's control our order. All right, let's add some conditional formatting. I want to know what row we are selecting. I want that row to be highlighted. So I'm going to hold down the P, go all the way down. Let's just go way down about here. And then I'm going to do form and then conditional formatting and create a new rule. And I'm going to use a formula. That's fine. We can use a formula. And it's going to be based on the row. And that's our selected row located right here in B5. So B5 is equal to row. What do I want to do? In that case, I want to put a little bit of a color on it. So I'm going to give it a fill let's say this light color, and maybe just a border, top and a bottom border, so that it's very clear which row that we're focused on, and click OK. Okay, great. So now as I add an item, let's zoom out a little bit so we can see it. It's a little bit, let's go to 90% so be a little more clear here. All right, so now that we click here, now we click on, let's say, pasta, and we click on a pasta, now it's automatically added. See how that is? And I like that a lot better. Pasta. Okay, good. We click on another one, it increases it. That's looking really good. Let's make these bold. I want to make this column bold, so just gonna easily so that it stands out. In fact, I'm going to make these bold too, and so everything gets a little bit more clear. So let's make this all bold. Okay, that's good. I like that. That's looking really, really nice, and we can see things really clearly. But what I'm going to do is now I want to be able to select a row and have the edit and the delete icon automatically come up. I think we were okay with 100% here. Okay, so I want to have that automatically come up so the user can select on that very easily. So how can we do that? Let's make this a little bit bigger here, a little more space. Okay, so now when we select on it, if we select on an item, I like that. How do we add a row below? That's on the edit icon. Let me walk you through that. Back into the code we go. Let's take a look now also under the order item macros. Here we just completed the add to order. Now I'm going to create a new macro. We're going to call this sub item, and then we'll call it edit item. And basically what I want to do is I want to insert a row instead of, so if I want to make an edit on this, first thing I want to do is I want to select an item and I want to enter a row below that so we can have some additional information be placed here in column Q. So the first thing I want to do is when I select from P to U, I want to have that selected automatically. So let's make sure that that happens first. So let's go into our main sheet on our on sheet and let's put in some macros on here. So, and it's going to be on selection change. So when the user makes a selection change, that's when we want that row to automatically do that. So when they use a touch screen or anything else that they select on it, it's automatically going to be on that row. So let's go into selections. I want to know what row, dim the selected row as long. I want to know what row they've selected. So if not, the user makes a change anywhere, a selection from P8 all the way over to U, and let's just say a large number, P8 through U, 999 is nothing, right? And I want to make sure it's not a total row. So I want to make sure that there's no T in the row W. So let's check that right now. And range W and the target dot row dot value does not equal T. We only want to select on rows, not total rows. Does not equal T. In that case, then what do I want to do? Then I want to put the target row into B5. So the selected row is going to equal the target dot row. Then what I want to do is I want to put it in B5 range B5 dot value equals the selected row. And also I want to move my shapes, right? I want to move my edit and my delete on whatever row they've selected. Now we just used that, so we can just pretty much copy that for the most part and then place it a little bit. So into the item macros, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and then just make adjustments in the code. So then all I need to do is the selector row, but we don't need dot shapes, so that's important. Take that dot shapes out. And our select row is the same. We've already defined it. Everything else is the same. So I think we are good to go. Also, I want to also select outside the order. I don't want to select inside that. So let's select something else, right? Range, let's try range. Let's try F4 dot select. Okay, so we'll select outside of that. Else, what else? Else if they haven't selected, else that means they select outside of this. In that case, I want to clear B5. Range B5 dot clear contents. Okay, let's take a look at that. Reset the code, save our work, and let's go in here. Now when we select a row, good, but our row is not coming into B5. We want to make sure that our conditional format is coming into B5. Our selected row is not going in. I think what we need to do is we only want to, if we select F4, so we only want to clear that out. We We can get rid of that. We don't need that. That's fine. Probably it's okay to keep the selected row. I like that better. Okay, so that looks good. That's just the way I really want to have it. So now we can edit the row. So now when I click on this icon, I want to insert a row below and have us enter some details or descriptions below the specific product. So let's write that macro. Now we can write that macro, so it's much easier. So back into the item macros, and now we're going to edit items. So let's get that written. And the first thing I want to do is I want to know if we need to drop the row. So we need to drop everything one row below. So we're going to dimension the last row as long, and the selected row, we need to know the selected row as long. Okay, now with sheet 1, let's scroll that up. With sheet 1, we're focused on that, of course, still on sheet 1. And what do I want to do? I want to know what the select row, we know it's in B5. The selected row is equal to dot range B5. That's important because we're going to focus on that. And then also, I want to know the last row. Again, let's do that. We just defined the last row already. We can just copy that code right up here. We've already defined the last row here. Right here. Here's our last row right here, but we're just going to set the different variable here. So in this case, instead of selected row, we're going to call this last row. Last row, again, we just used that, so we don't need to rewrite that again. I want to know if the selected row is the last row, right? If, for example, if we've selected the last row, we want to add some information here into Q, I don't need to move anything else down. So I need to know if the selected row is the last row. So let's run a check for that. If selected row is equal to the last row, in that case, what we can do is we can skip some of the copying the rows, copying the data down, so we don't need to do. Then go to on last row, so we can skip some things. On last row colon. Okay, so because we don't need to move anything down because we're already on the last row. So now what we want to do is we want to insert rows. So insert row, want to insert row below. So dot range P and the selected row plus 2, right? Because I want to go 2 rows down plus 2, and what? All the way through W, all the way through column W, and the last row plus 1, because I need to move everything down 1, equal, what does it equal? Well, it equals dot range P, right, in the selected row, P in the selected row. That's the row that we're focused on, plus 1, selected row plus 1, all the way through W and the last row. So what that's going to do is going to copy again. Let's go over that. Got to put the and sign in here. Okay, so let's go over that. P in the selected row plus 2 value equals dot range P in the selected row. So basically what is that is, let's say our selected row is this. What I want to do is I want to take everything here and I just want to move it down 1 row. And then I want to clear the row out. So we can do that. So first thing I want to do is bring it down, and the next thing I want to do is clear it out. So this move, copy down 1 row. So that's what that does. The next thing I want to do is I want to clear it out. So what do I want to clear out? I want to clear out basically this one right here, but just the row and row down. So the selected row in this case plus 1 all the way through W and selected row plus 1. In this case, I'm going to clear that out. Dot clear contents. That's going to clear everything out and clear the row below, not the selected row, but the row below. Okay, so now that we've cleared it out, now we're ready on the last. Now what I want to do, I want to make sure that we select the row below. So how can we do that? I want to put the user to enter some data right in Q in the row below. So we can do that with this line of code. Dot range Q and the selected row plus 1 dot select. Okay, very good, very good. That should be it. Now let's assign the macro. Right click, assign the macro, and what macro are we assigning? Item edit, and then click OK. Now that we've assigned that macro, now let's click and move it down. All right, let's fix that because that's obviously not what we want to do. Okay, obviously this is going to be selected row, not the last row. Okay, selected row. All right, I think that's going to do it. Now let's try it again. Add here, add a 1 down. That's what I want. Let's add some more items here, and then we can enter we need to get that selection change. Doesn't make any sense at all. So back into the restaurant, we need to get rid of this. I don't need that as well. Okay, get rid of that. That's not necessary. So we want to keep that here. And the reason is I wanted it off there, but it's good now. Okay, that's what I want. Now they can enter the information in here. Perfect. Edit it into the information in here. Good, that's what I want. Now let's format these under the currency. So go all the way down here, get that at currency, home, and then what we'll do is we'll format, I think currency would work good. Okay, nice. Now things are coming together really nicely on. Okay, what do we want to do? Well, I want to be able to delete it. Now that we have edit, I want to be able to clear a line. So let's do that. Let's focus on the delete and get that macro finished up. So we've done the item macros, we've done the edit item. So now let's do delete item. So sub item delete item, because I want to be able to clear the item just as we would if we edited. So how do we do that? Right, it's a little bit similar than the edit item, but just some updates. So dimension, selected row as long, and also I want to know the item database. If it's been saved before, we also have to delete it from the item database. So that we need to check as long, and also the last row, same thing, last row as long. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to define both the selected row and the last row, and we also need to know if it's a last row here. So we're going to do the same thing here and just paste it down here as well. Copy that. So we've got the select row, of course, with sheet 1, We're still focused on sheet 1 as we always are, and we're going to drag that right back into here. And so now we have the selected row and the last row. We've defined both of those. And now I want to clear the database if it exists. So let's check that. Remember, I'm going to take the database row and I'm going to put it right in here. That means, what does that mean? That means our order item details. Here's where we're going to store the details. So row 5 or row 6, we need to know what row it's on. And that's going to be located, I'm going to place that right here off the screen into W. So if this contains a value, we know it's already been saved to a row here, and I'll have to clear that row. I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to keep the order ID, but I'm going to clear everything else. So we can do that with this little bit of code right here. If .range W and the selected row .value does not equal empty, then we need to do a few things. The item database row, it's equal to .range in W and the selected row and the selected row. So that's what we're going to find, the selected row. Then all we need to do is clear out the database, which is located in sheet 4. It's our item database, order item details database. Sheet 4, I'm going to keep column A, sheet 4 .range B, starting with B, and the item database row all the way through G. So and all the way through colon G and the item database row and item database row dot clear contents. So we're going to clear that out, clear all but the order number, clear all info but the order number. I want to keep the order number there just because I want to keep all the rows the same. Okay, to maintain the rows, so I want to keep the rows there, the row structure always the same. So that's if it's already in the database. So now we've removed it. So we're good to go on that. What do I want to do? Now I want to move the rows up. I want to move all it because we've cleared it all out, and I want to move the rows up. So let's do that. Dot range P, remember starting in P, and the selected row and the selected row and all the way through W, and what is it? The last row, of course, last row, in this case -1, last row -1 dot value equals, what is it going to equal? Almost the same but slightly different. Let's copy this, make it a little bit quicker so this doesn't become forever training. P, okay, so but this time what I'm going to do is going to be P in the selected row +1 all the way through W and the last row. So that's it, last row and last row. Okay, good. So now we've got that. That's gonna, and then all I need to do is clear the last row out. So how do we do that? That's pretty much simple. It's just gonna clear it out. So I'll copy this and clear the last row out. So that's P in the last row all the way through W in the last row. We just need to clear the contents of that. So dot clear contents. Okay, that's going to clear the last row. Clear last row. Okay, but we just need to I need to make sure that we're on the last row. Again, I want to check to make sure if we're on the last row, we can't clear it. So we can do that up here. Go to on last row. Remember, so we need to run that on last row here, just so it's always skipped, because we don't need to do anything if we're on the last row. So all right, let's just take a look at that code. I think we're good to go. Save our work. Always save our work. And we've moved up the selected row. We want to make sure we clear out the database regardless if we're on the selected row. So that's got to go below that. Here, it's a selected row there. Okay, but we also want to make sure we're going to delete the current row if it's the last row. If it's the last row, we still need to delete it. So how do we do that? We can just do exit sub in case, and then in this case, we're just going to do the last row dot range P in the selected row, because this would be if we're clearing out the selected row, P and the selected row all the way through, and W and the selected row dot clear content. So that would be the last row. If we're on the last row, I want to clear content. So that's going to clear last row. But if it's not on the last row, of course, we've already exited out. Okay, I think that's going to work really good. Let's save our code, check for errors. If we're on the last row and I clear it out and I assign this macro, let's click the assign macro, and now we're going to click it to delete item. So let's take a look. If we're on the last row and clear it, that works nicely. What if we're not on the last row? I want to move everything up. That's exactly what I want. Move everything up. Nice. And move everything up. Perfect. So that's working really good. Okay, what next? Well, we need to save that order. We want to make sure it's saved. So if we've got, let's put in just a temporary table number here and type delivery. I want to make sure to be able to save that order. And the first thing I want to do is I also got to put in the totals here. The totals have to go in and we have to save it. So how can we do that? Let's write some macros to do just that. So back into we have a save and update module here. Let's write in a macro that we're going to save it. So let's get in that. So we can start that out, call that sub order save. It's going to be used for both save and update. So save update, we'll call that save and update. And we're going to dimension some variables, mention the last row as long, and also the order row as long. And also I need the item row as long. Those are all important because we're going to have to go through these. And I also need to know the item database row as long and the total row as long. And okay, good. So what else we need? I want to dimension the total range just as we did before. Total range as a range, because we're going to need to bring that total in. And of course, we're focusing on with sheet 1. So, all right, what do we need to do? The first thing I wanted to make sure is if there is actual and order information, there needs to be at least something here in P8, at least the first item. So let's make sure that there is. If.range P8 value equals empty, then we're going to alert the user. Then what do I want to do? I want to alert the user. Message box, please add at least one item to save this order. Okay, exit sub, no items and cannot be saved. All right, so now that we have that item, what else do I want to do? We need an end if there, and if. Okay, so we have that, and that's going to help us just to make sure that they put an item in. What do we want to do next? Next, I want to also clear the total rows if they're existing. I want to clear them temporarily because I want to make sure that the total rows are set properly, because I'm going to add the total rows in another macro because that's going to help us out. Let's do that. Clear total rows if existing. Temporarily, let's put temporary, we're going to add them right back in. So we're going to set the total range is going to equal to, again, we're going to look for that look for that T dot range. Where are we looking? We're looking in W8 all the way through W999. That's fine enough. And we're going to find it. I'm looking for the dot find. And we're looking again for the T. And I'm going to look for that. And then if it's found, if not total range is nothing, then it's found, right? If not, it's space in here. Then means it's found. Then what do I want to do? Then dot range P, I'm going to clear it out. P and total range dot row, and all the way through, remember it's going to be 3 rows of total, and all the way through W and the total range dot row plus 3, going to clear it out, dot clear content. So that's going to clear all the totals out just temporarily so that we can make sure we add those in a little bit later and later add them in properly through another macro. Okay, so now what we want to do is I want to get the last row. That's really important. So again, we know the last row. We've already added this item. I'm not going to write it again because we've had it here. So let's just put it in right here. The last row, it's everything we need right here. And we'll go back into the save and then just place it right in here. So last row, make sure we define it. We know what it is. And also what I want to do is, so now that we've defined the last row, I want to check if it's a new order or not, right? We need to know, is it a new order or an existing order? How do we know that? Well, if it's a new order, we know that B4 is going to be blank because it's not going to be found. Order number 6 is not going to be found, or we're not going to have any order in there if B4 is blank. So we can use B4 to tell us. If dot range B4 dot value equals empty, then we know it's a new order. Else, existing order. And if. Okay, so now we've got that. Now we can use differentiate between that. So if it's equal to empty, then what's going to be our order row? It's going to be our first available order on sheet 3. Remember, sheet 3 is our orders where we're keeping track of it. I want to know the first available row right here. In this case, it's going to be 6. So what is that row? So we can use that. So our order row is equal to sheet 3, A in the first plus 1, right? That's the first available row. First available row. Okay, so now that we've got the first available row, what do I want to put in there? I want to put in the order number. And what is that order number? We know the next order. We've already written the formula. We know it's going to be located right here into B6. That's our next order number. I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it right in here into our first available row, including A. So let's do that. So sheet 3 dot range A and the order row dot value equals, actually what we're going to do is on new, we're going to move it in. I forgot to mention what I'm going to do on new orders. If it's a new order, I'm going to take whatever's our next and I'm going to put it right here, put it inside R6. So when we click new order, when we click this, this, or this, we're going to take that next order and we're going to place it right in R6. So R6 is actually where we're going to get it from. That's fine. Equals dot val dot range R6. R6, and that's going to be our new order number. Okay, so we have our new order number. Everything else is based on the existing order. What do we want to do? In this case, our order row is located, of course, in B4, right? We know it's in B4 because B4 is not empty, and that's where our order row is going to come. So we can copy and paste that and equals order row. That's our order row for existing. Okay, so everything else we're going to do is going to be regardless if it's a new order or an existing order. So we can want to add all the information in date and time, order type, server or staff, whoever. We're going to put all that in. So sheet 3 dot range. In this case, we're going to focus on B, which is our date and time B, and the order row dot value is going to equal now, which is the current date and time. Current date time, I want to put that. I want to put the current order date and time. I also want to put it here right in Q6 as well, but I also want to put it right here inside column B. So we can do that. So that's where it's going to go. Next up, I want to put the type here, dine in, delivery, or whatever, and then the server, so we can continue on with our code here. So we can copy this here, and in this case, next up we're going to do C. I want information in C. I want information in, what do I want in C? In C, we're going to put in our order type. Of course, we haven't finished that out. And the next up is going to be our server or staff. And then the next up, of course, that's going to be in D. All right, let's take a look. Let's bring this down so we can see the columns. In D, all right, and E is going to be the table number, D, and then E is going to be the table number. And what else do we have? We also have the total, so we're going to want to put that in as well, and that's going to go in F is where our total is going to be, and then we'll pull the information from sheet 1. This is just putting in total. And also I want to put in our discount and our payment, but that's going to come in a little bit later because we haven't added it in yet. So at least we have that. So that's going to come in. Where is our order type going to come from? Equals dot range. That's going to come from, I believe, let's take a look here, and our order, it's going to come from order type S6. So let's put in S6 is where it's located. That's our order type. We can copy that and just put in the rest of the additional information here. Copy the equals. You guys didn't know you were going to get a full course in this, did you? Okay, now we've got, okay, so now let's put in our server. Now our server and our staff is going to come from T6, so that's going to go in T. And our table number, that's going to go in come from P6. Okay, let's make this look a little bit better. I'm going to bold it and then center it so that's a little bit better. And then center. Okay, so that's more clear. Ordered on. And I also want to put the ordered on date automatically into Q6 as well. So let's do that. Okay, so dot range Q6 is also equals now current date and time. Okay, so we have that. Now we put in the information in, and actually our total, that's not going to be ready yet. So what is our total going to be? Our total, let's calculate that. It's going to be equal to, what is it equal to? It's going to be equal to the application worksheet. We're going to use sum on this. Sum, what are we summing? We're summing, actually we're going to put in total a little bit later on. I want the total with taxes. I don't want just the subtotal. I'm going to put that in later. We're going to put that in, so we won't put that in just yet. Because once we add in our totals, we can come back and put that in, because right now we're just putting in all the main detail, and then we're going to come back and put in the total. Okay, so now we've saved all of the information, right? We've saved it except for the total, right? We haven't done that. We'll come back to that. So we've saved our order number, date, time, type, server, table, not the total. We haven't done any of this. This is all going to come information at the footer, so we'll take care of that later. But we've got the main stuff here. Now what I want to do is I want to take all of our items and save or update. Either update if it's existing or save it. How do we know if it's existing? If W contains a value, we know it already has a database row. If W doesn't contain a value, then we need to add a brand new row. So we're going to use W to let us know if it does or not. So let's continue down. How do we know that? So we're going to say enter item details. So what we want to do is we want to loop through all the items. I want to loop, that's why we removed the total. I just want to loop through all the items starting on 8 and going to the last row and making sure and checking if W contains a value, save or update the information. If it doesn't contain a value, add a new row. So we can do that with a loop. So for the item row equals 8 to last row, next item row. Close that loop. Okay, so what do we want to do? Again, first thing we want to do is check if W contains a value. If dot range W and the item row dot value equal to empty, then what? Then it's a new row. New item, else existing. Now we can move it on. Okay, so if it's a new row item, what do I want to do? Well, the first thing I want to do is put the ID, the order ID, that's got to go in right here in column, in row A, and then the first available. So let's get that first available. So the item database row is going to be equal to +1, our first available row, and of course that's going to be on sheet 4 where our items are located using column A, our first available row. So now that we have the item database row, we can put inside A, because that's only for new orders, so sheet 4 dot range A and the item database row dot value equals what? Equals whatever's in R6. We want that. I want to put in that order number. Now we know that order number is located right here on R6. So let's put that in. Equals dot range R6. That's the order ID. Very important. Order ID. We only need to do that for new items, so we only need to do that once. What else do I want to put in? I want to put in the item row in F. I want to know what row of this order here. In this case, it would be 9 or 10 or whatever row. I want to put that row, and I want to put it right here in F. And then I want to put whatever row is currently. So this is the database row, 3, 4, 5. This is the order row, the row here, which is starting at 8, 9, 10, okay? So I want to keep track of both of those, and those don't change. Those are only for new items. So let's put those in right now. Sheet, we can copy this because it's going to be almost the same thing, and then just going to add some details. Sheet 4, in this case, it's going to be F, and in F, we're going to put the order row. And what is our order row? It is located here. Item row. We know the item row. And the next thing I want to do is I want to put in G, but I want to put that, of course, it's going to be the item database row. So that is going to be the equals item database row. Okay, so now we've got this information here and this information here. That's only for new items. So A, F, and G is only for new item. Else, what else? We know the item database row. That's going to be stored in W equals dot range W, and what row? The item row, and the item row. That's our item database row. Of course, it's equal existing, right? We're either going to place it right here. And one more thing we need to do, actually, I need to place it. If it's a new, I want to place that database right inside W. So let's do that. That's really important. So do it down here. Dot range. Again, we can copy this. W in this case, right here, equals, again, the item database row. I need to track that. That's going to be in W, very important. So we have all that. Now everything else, so this is all for new items, this is for existing items, and everything else is going to be for regardless if it's new or existing. I'm just going to update it. Sheet 4 dot range, we're going to start out with column B, in this case B, and the item database row dot value. What's going to go in there? That's going to go the product name. So where's the product name coming from? P equals dot range P and the item row. Okay, so that is going to be our product name. What else though? So now we can just copy and paste, and it'll be a little bit easier and just make the updates. Now I want to also know the detail, right? If there's any detail for that, I want to put that in the next. That's going to be located in based on column C and also Q, right? So we're going to take Q, whatever's in Q, any detail that we have, and we're going to put it right in here into the product detail here. If there's specific detail, I want it here. So next up is the quantity. So let's write that in. This would be the item detail or product detail. Next up, we have the quantity. Next up is the price. Okay, of course, those are going to go in different columns, right? D and column E. Okay, so P, but of course, our quantity is coming from R and our price is coming from S. So that we've all updated. All right, so that looks good. So we've got all of that there. Let's just go over that. We have our quantity, our price, and our detail all moving into, when we're saving it, going from here, product detail, quantity, and price. We've already put the order row, but now we have all the information that we want here. So we can close our loop and we can go next item row. So that's it. That's all we have to do. Now we've saved our items. Now all we need to do is add in our total range. So I'm going to write a macro to do that because our totals are going to be added in many times. Like when we load, I want to add the totals of dynamic. So we're going to do that with add in total range. So we're going to call that a macro called order add totals. Order add totals. That's a macro that's going to run automatically. So I'm going to write that macro right now. Macro to add totals. After we add the totals, then we add the information in, right? Then we add the information. We want to save those total informations back to the database. So how do we do that? The last row is equal to, now once we add our totals in, once we run the macro to add our totals in, so basically what we're going to do is I'm just going to copy this through a macro. We're going to write that in just a moment. I'm going to place that right in here. Let's see, what I want to do is I want to skip one blank row and place our orders here, put our totals in. Now I want to determine the last row after we added totals in. So I'm going to run that last row one more time. In this case, it would be 17. So let's write that in. The last row is equal to P, in this case it's going to be P, we'll add P in there. And so of course not sheet 1, we don't need sheet 1. So now it's the last row, because I want to get the total information, put the discount, put the total and the payments all the way in. Remember, we didn't add that information in before, so we're going to add it in now. So where's our total going to be? Our total is going to be located here. So we got our last row. In this case, our last row is 17. So where's our total? Our total is going to be one less than the last row, and it's going to be located right here in T, column T. Remember, our macro that we're just about to write is going to add in all this information, add it in. So don't worry about that. All I know, we just need to know that our total is going to be here, and we want to save whatever is here. And I'm going to put that right inside here. I want to put it right in here, the discount on the payment. So I want to save all that information because we know our database row. So let's do that. Dot range, put in our discount calculation right now. T, where's our discount located? Our discount's located in T. I want to put that into sheet 3 dot range. We're going to focus on, again, the total. I want to know that after we've imported it. And then so our orders is going to be, our total is going to go in F, our discount's going to go in G, and our payment's going to go in H. So let's do that right now. Sheet 3, F, and the order row dot value, what is it going to equal? It's going to equal dot range based on the last row, T, and the last row minus 1 dot value. Let's just double check that. I want to make sure on that. T, here's the last row, right? Here's the last row minus 1 is going to be right here. T, the last row minus 1. That's our total. Our payment is located on Q in the last row. So let's put in the payments now under the item, under the order. So we want discount and payment. Also put those both in. Discount's going to be same thing in T, but it's going to be minus 2. So we can just copy and paste that. This is our total. And the next up would be our discount and then our payment. So paste that and paste that. Okay, so F, G, and H. Discount and our payment. Okay, so our payment, our discount, of course, is located right here, T minus 2, so that's pretty simple. T minus, last row minus 2, and our payment is located in our last row, but it's in column Q. So our last row, Q, and our last row. Okay, so we've got that, but we do need to create one more macro here, so we've got that. All right, but what I want to do is I want to just hide it. When I want to save it, I want to hide these two icons. So let's write some code for that just to hide it. We don't need those visible when we save it. We've already saved it. So dot shapes, edit icon, dot visible equals MSO false. And then dot shapes, delete icon, dot visible equals MSO false. Okay, so we've deleted those, we've hidden those. We've hidden those two icons. Okay, so we just need to write out this macro right here, order add total. So let's write that in right now. I want to write it down below here, sub order add totals. Okay, so with sheet 1, of course we're focused on, we're going to add those totals in right now. Okay, so how do we do it? We need to dimension the first few things. Dimension the last row, dimension last row as long. And also, again, we're also with sheet 1, so we're going to stay on that sheet. We need to know the last row, pretty much just what we did here. So again, we can copy that last row just as we did here. No need to rewrite this long line of code here, and place it right down here. So we've got the last row, and now what I want to do is, again, I want to basically take this total range here. So we've got the last row. Let's say the last row is here, but I want to skip one and then put this. So P and the last row plus 2 through W and the last row plus 4 equals our total range. We've already defined it here under total range. So that's all we have to do is write that into the code. So let's just write that up. Dot range P and the last row plus 2, because I want to add a blank row, plus 2 and W and the last row plus 4 dot value equals dot range What's the name of it? Total range. That's it. Total range right above. Total range dot value. Okay, so but that doesn't put in our formulas. That only puts in the values, but now we want to put in all the formulas so that we can calculate our total bill. So let's do that with just a few lines of code. Dot range Q and the last row plus 2. What do we want to put in Q? What do I want to put in here? I want to put the subtotal, Q in the last row plus 2. The subtotals are going to be basically whatever's through T8 all the way through T in the last row. So let's just write that up, that formula, write that up here. Dot formula, we could use value too, equals, because it's going to automatically be a formula, equals, what is it? The sum of, again, T8 is going to be our first one, T8. We know that that's going to be our first one, all the way through T and the last row. And of course, we have to close the parentheses and close the parentheses. So that is our sum formula. That's our subtotal. Okay, so we've got our subtotal written. What else do I need? I need to know what our total formula is. So what is our total formula? Dot range, again, here's our total. It's going to basically be equal to our subtotal plus our tax. Our tax is going to put in here. We need to put in the tax, of course, too. We'll put in that. And minus the discount plus the total. So let's put in our tax while we're at it, because that's going to be next. Q, and it's going to go in Q and the last row plus 3. So let's add that in right now. Dot range. In this case, we can actually copy this. It's much quicker. Copy this and put this in. Of course, it's not Q. It's going to be last row plus 3. And what is our formula? It's going to be equal to our subtotal times our tax. Our subtotal times our tax. What is that? Equals, and what's our subtotal located? Our subtotal is located, of course, in Q. Here's our subtotal right here, our value. Now we just placed it, so that's where our subtotal is going to go. So I need to know that equals Q and the last row plus 2 and times, what is it? We already have a named range, the tax rate. We already defined it. Tax rate. Okay, good. So times the tax rate. That's all we need. So Q in the last row. So what that's going to do is going to place it right in Q. Next up, now we're ready to add the total. So now we know the total's in T, and the total, of course, is going to be whatever's in the subtotal plus the tax minus the discount equals the total. So let's write that up. So what would that look like? Equals the subtotal plus whatever's in the tax minus whatever's the discount. So that's what it's going to look like. That's what it's going to look like. So if we have a total of $50 and we have a tax, right? Let's see, equals, in this case, this times the tax rate. We've already got it. There we go. And the discount is $2. We want that. So that's what I want. So this is our formula right here. That's our formula. So how do we take that and put it into VBA? We can do that easy. Dot range T, remember putting that in T. Where is it T? If our last row is here, it's going to go our T minus last row minus 1. Okay, so T, we don't need 2 of these, and the last row plus 3, I should say, plus 3. That's, our total row, right? If our tax is here, our total is going to stay plus row plus 3. Formula equals, and I'll show you an easy way of doing it, if we paste in that code. Okay, so now we paste in it, but of course that's not going to work. All I need to do is replace 15 with, in this case, our last row plus 2, right? If our last row is here plus 3, our last row is here plus 1, 2, 3, our last row 3, 15. So 15 is going to be, of course, 15 is going to be our subtotal. So that's our last row plus 2. So let's write that in. And last row plus 2 and Q, last row, guess this would be last row plus 3. 16 would be last row plus 3. Quotation marks and last row plus 2, 3 in this case, right? 16, 3, and again, quotation marks minus T, and instead of 15, we're going to put in the last row 2. Okay, I think that's going to work just fine, and that is what we call our total. Actually, it's going to be plus Q, right? Plus Q in the last row, plus 3, minus T in the last row, plus 2. Perfect. That's our total. Okay, great. So now we've got it. Now we've got all of our totals, and our formulas are all in there. Okay, let's go ahead and save our code, and let's run that. I'm going to run that code here, and let's take a look at here. Okay, well let's clear that out because we had our last row. Now let's run it again. Let's just run it again and see what we get. Okay, let's see, 187, 14, we can reduce that. Let's format that as a currency because we can no longer need that as a, okay, that's exactly what we want. Perfect. And we have no discount. Let's see if we put a $5 discount automatically. Good. That's just what I want. Although I do need some formats in here. We need to make this look a little bit better. Let's put in some conditional format. And now what separates this total from everything else? Well, we know it's got the T here. We didn't delete those. So we know it has the T here, right? So let's delete it one more time. Let's run the code one more time so we can clear out, just get the right. So we see that this differentiates everything else. And so how do we know that this total is different? Because it's got the T. So if I take and highlight all of these and go all the way down here and add some conditional formatting, but it's based on the T here, then I can only format the totals. That's what I want. So conditional formatting, new rule, use a formula. And in this case, we're going to start with 8. In this case, 8 here. And then, of course, we don't want to use the $sign in front of the 8. We want to make sure it's dynamic and not fixed. Equals, in this case, equals T. Then I want to format it. W and all. What do I want to do? I just want to at least make it, put some borders on top and below. So like that. Let's take a look at how that looks. Yeah, that looks much better. That's what I would like to see. Very good. So what else do I want? Actually, let's format all this entire column on the left, home, and then left. And also, I don't want to highlight, I want to make sure that there's a value in, see, I don't want to select anything. I want to make sure there's a value at least in P or Q and not T. So let's add some more code to this to make sure that we're only selecting rows which contain a value. So let's go back into the on-sheet code here, and let's add just a little bit additional code for that. If range P and the target dot row dot value does not equal empty, or of course Q as well, or range Q and target dot row dot value does not equal empty, then, okay, only then do I want to place that, not in the double and sign, then I want to place it. Okay, so we had to just add one more end if here, end if. And then we can bring that out because that's really what I want to see here. Okay, and so now let's take a look at that. Now that's the way I want it. Nothing here, except probably not. That's good. That's just what I want. Only on items, not anything else. Very good. That's just what I want here. Okay, so we've got that figured out. Now we've written our save order. So now let's update. Now let's assign a macro. Let's bring this down and let's actually assign a macro to this so that we can get that all aligned. I'm going to align the middle on that, making sure it looks okay, and add a little bit of space so our button looks nice and proper. Okay, so we're going to group that, and then we'll call it save group. And then I'm going to assign a macro to that. So that's the macro we just assigned, and we're going to call it order, save, or update, and click OK. All right, let's save our code and see if we run into any issues on that. Okay, well that looks really nice. You see we've now assigned an order. Let's just make those all in the middle so we can see them. Now it's everything's saved. Now we have our ordered on our 6. We didn't have any bugs, but I'd like to see all these bold probably, but it's okay. I want the totals all in bold. So I don't want, if I add these, I want to add, let's say no onion. I don't want those in bold. I don't want that in bold, but I do want, and let's save again. Okay, good. That's just what I want. So notice this added line in 30. So if we look in our item details, we see now that we have no, I spelled onion wrong. Nice. But let's fix that and make sure it updates, right? no onion. Okay, but I do like onion, just so we're saying. Save the order, and let's make sure it updated in the item details. Now it's spelled right. Good. That's what I want. Perfect. Just what I want. Now we've updated it. Now it's looking really good, but I want everything in bold here. But I don't want this in bold, but I do want this in bold. What's our differentiating factor? It's that T. So let's do that. Let's add to that. So go back. We've already got conditional formatting, and we already have one under here, so we can just use that one. This one here. What I want to do is I just want to make the text bold. So I'm going to go into the font and make that bold. That's all I need to do. Now, click apply. Now everything's going to be bold, but not here. Perfect. That's what I want. Okay, we're looking good. We're getting close to finishing. We've got a few more macros to write, so let's get to that. I know this is super extra long training, but I don't want to do a multi-part, so and I think I'll take a few weeks off training. Just keep that in mind. All right, but no problem. I'll be back. Just going to focus on marketing for the next. If you do like these trainings, you want to support us, you can do it in many ways. One of the great ways to do that is by picking up the 150 workbooks for just $56. But if you want to take this training to the next level and learn how to take these talents and bring them into actual passive income, you can do that in our mentorship program. In our mentorship program, I'm building an amazing accounting application, and I'm teaching you at the same time how to take your skills to the next level and learn how to create passive income by selling your own software. And that's through our define, design, develop, and deploy your own application. So I'm taking you every step of the way. So if you like that, our mentorship program is the way to go. So I'll put the links down below, or you can go to myexcelmentor.com, get signed up, and I'm going to teach you every step of how you turn your passion into profits. All right, let's continue on with the training. I want to make sure you get the most out of this training, one of our most amazing. So now we have to save order, but how do we load order? Let's bring this out of here. We'll use this in a minute. I want to create something like a search order, and I want a user to be able to search it. So let's put that here, and let's put that in white, in fact, and I'll drop it down. I'm going to take that. Let's drop this down for let's pin this down for a second, and I want to make that in white, and I want to put a border around it. I want to be able to search for order, so I'm going to put something clear. I'm going to use this same and put a double order around it, and then a dotted line all the way around, and a dotted line in the middle here. Okay, so when a user enters we already wrote this macro. We can get rid of that because we wrote it on another module. Okay, so continuing on, let's reset that. And so what I want to do is I want to put the order number right in here, and when an order number is entered here, I want it searched automatically. So how can we do that? Well, let's do that. All we need to do is I want to load that order. So let's write a macro. As soon as the user enters, let's say 6, I want that order to load automatically. So let's write the macro so we can load orders in automatically. All right, let's get to that. On to the module here. We've got a module called load, and that's the one we're going to focus on right now. So we're going to call this sub order load. Okay, so that's going to load our order. Dimension the order row as long. I also want to know the item row as long. The item database, because I want to bring it all, now that we saved it, I want to bring it all back in row as long. And then the last item row, I need to run an advanced filter in our items, so we need that. And our last result row as long, because I need to know all of our results, and I need to loop through the results. So result row as long, and our last row as long, because I need to run an advanced filter, so I need to know all of that. Okay, so we have that. Now I dimension the order. I want to do a search, so I'm going to dimension the order range as a range, and the order number is a string. I'm going to do a search for the order number as string. Okay, that's it. Now with sheet 1, what do I want to do? I want to first check to make sure that T3 is not empty, right? If it's empty, then we can't search, right? If they've deleted it, so T3 needs to have a value in it. So let's check that first. If .range T3.value equals empty, then message box, please enter a correct order number. Range, and then we'll just select T3 dot select. We'll select it for the user so they know where to go. Exit sub. Okay, so now we know the order number is going to be located in T3. So the order number equal dot range T3. So that's going to be where our order is located. I'm going to put that as order number, although it's relatively self-explanatory. Set the order range. We've already defined as a range above. Order range equal to sheet 3. That's where our orders are. Dot range. Order number. That's our named range that we've already created. Order number. Dot find. I want to look for the order. What do I want to find? I want to find the order number. Okay, now we can run a test. If order range is nothing, then let the user know, hey, this doesn't exist. So message box, please enter a correct order number. Okay, so we could please select correct order number, exit sub. If it's not a correct order, we can't load it. Okay, so assuming it is correct, now we can determine the row of that. And so how do we do that? Dot range. First thing I want to do is I want to clear all the contents. I want to clear everything out because I want to make sure we're loading a brand new order, so I want to clear everything out. So B5, of course, I want to clear out B5. What's in B5 and why do I want to clear it out? That's our selected row. I want to clear that out. No reason to keep that. Brand new order. And I also want to clear out everything from P all the way to W, clear all of that out. So we can do that with the following lines of code. B5. Also, I want to clear out T, also the information, also up here, T would be P3 all the way through U, P6 all the way through U6. I want to clear that out. And I also want to clear out whatever's in T3. So I want to do that. All of that information should be cleared out before we load in the information. So we can do that. T3, clear that out. We've already got the order number. P6 through W6. P6 through all the way through U6 is fine. U6, let's do that. U6, and what else? And of course, P8 all the way through W, and then 999. Okay, so let's take a look at B5, T3, P6, U through U6. This should be P3 and P8 through W99. Okay, dot clear contents. That's going to clear all the information. Clear order. Now I also want to make sure we also hide the icons. We don't need that. So let's, these icons right here, I want to hide those. No need to have those up. So we can hide those. Hide our edit and our delete icons. Now that we have those edited, what I can do is I can set the order row. So the order row is equal to the order range dot row. Okay, that's the order row. Now we can load everything in. Once we have that, so we can load in, again, let's load in all the information. I want to load in the table number, the ordered on. We already have the order row. That's going to be the order number. That's going to be in R6. And we have S6 is going to be the delivery type and the staff service. So let's load all of that in. Here, dot range P6 dot value is equal to sheet 3, that's our order sheet, dot range E, and it's the table number. All right, let's pull that up and we know exactly what we're ordering. E is the table number, we have the server, we have the type, date and time. I want to bring all that in here. Okay, so E and the order row dot value, and that's going to be the table number. Okay, so now we can just copy and add and update those. P6, okay, we have, again, in B is going to be, of course, our ordered on, and we also have in our C is going to be our type, and next up we also have our server. And our server is going to be in D. So we have all the information. Now we just get the information. So where is it located inside our, pulled up here. All right, now we can see it. Now we can see all the information. So we know that our table number is located in P6. So we can bring it down. Table numbers P6, we've got that. Ordered on is going to be Q6, so update that. We have our type located in S6. And of course, lastly, we have our server located in T6. Okay, the only thing we need is, of course, the order number in R. We need to put that in R, so we can do that. We've already cleared it out, so let's do it up here. So we're going to put dot range R, because we're clearing it out below. R6 is going to be equal to whatever they've entered in T3, equals dot range T3. Okay, because it's cleared out here, so that's our order number. Okay, so perfect. So we've got everything filled in on our top part. Now all we need to do is add in our items. So we can do that with the following lines of code. Let's put in that, comment it out, load items. All right, so first of all, what we want to do is I want to run an advanced filter. I want to take the order number and I want to run an advanced filter. So I want to put the order number, I want to put it in right here in our criteria, and I want to run an advanced filter. I want to get all of our results, and I want to bring them all in and put them all inside right here. So how can we do that? Pretty easily, just run. So the first thing we want to do is determine the last row. So the last item row is going to be equal to sheet 4 dot range. Okay, that's going to be our last row. Last item row. Okay, so now that we have our last item row, we're just going to check if last item row is less than 3, then go to no items. Items. Okay, so no items. All right, just in case there's no items. Okay, so assuming that there are items. Okay, so assuming that there are items, we can continue on with our advanced filter. But we need to set our order number here. We've defined it up here. Let's define it up here. Put it in. We know where it's located. It's in R6, but we can also define it in a variable. Same thing. We know it's located in R6. Let's define it as a variable because we have it up here. Our order number here is a string. We've got it here. So let's do that. Let's put in our order number. So sheet 4 dot range K3. That's where we're going to put our criteria. K3 dot value equals order number. Okay, so our order number is here. And so that's going to put in our criteria. Now that we have our criteria, we're ready to run our advanced filter inside our sheet 4. Sheet 4 dot range. Again, where's it coming from? Let's take a look at sheet 4 while we're typing this out. Sheet 4 is going to start in A2 all the way through G in the last row. Criteria is K2 through K3, and our results are going to go from M2 through S. So let's write that up. A2 through G, and our last item row dot advanced filter, copying it over, and criteria range is equal to, again, sheet 4 dot range K2 through K3, K2 through K3. Okay, copy to range. What range are we copying it to? Equals sheet 4 again dot range, and this time it's going to be M2 through S2. M2 through S2. Okay, good. And now unique colon equals false is fine. Okay, I think that's it. Let's just take a quick look at that. These longer codes, I want to double check them. A2 through G in the last item, advanced filter. We're going to copy it to another range. The criteria range, sheet 4, K2 through K, copying it to another range. Correct. Sheet 4, M2 through S2, unique equals false. That looks good. Again, now we're ready to get the last results row. Last result row, what is it equal to? In this case, it's going to be sheet 4. We're focused on M this time. Sheet 4M is we're going to determine. And if we were last results, now we just need to check if the last result row is less than 3, then go to no items. All right, we've already defined it below, so we have that fine. All right, assuming that there is, now we can run a loop. So what is our loop going to consist of? It's going to consist of 4 result row equals 3 to last result row. Close our loop, next result row. Okay, so what's that going to be? First of all, I want to make sure, I need to know what row, so we got to check This is where we're going to check. This is our order row. So that's very important. We'll call that our item row actually, because it's going to go inside our item. It's going to go right here. We need to know that row. Very important. So inside that, let's pull that value first. And if it's got to contain a value, if it's blank, we can't put it in. So if sheet4.range r and the result row dot value does not equal empty, then we can continue on. Now we can continue. It can't be empty. So we can put our item row. What's it going to be? It's going to be equal to whatever's right here. That's the row we're going to put it in inside our order. Equals, okay, our item order row. So now we have the row. Now we can place everything inside. And what's going to go inside? Well, the first thing we're going to put in is the product or item, and that's going to be, of course, in dot range in column P, and the item row value is going to equal to sheet4.range. Of course, that's coming from N and our result row dot value. Okay, that's our product, our item name. Okay, now we can copy it and just update the additional. So now we have, now next in Q is going to go our description or our detail, product detail, call it product detail. And that's going to be here in Q, and it's going to also come from, in this case, O, right? So O. Okay, so next up, O. Okay. So next up, what do I also want? I also want to put in R. So R is going to be our quantity. So now that we have our quantity in R, and where's our quantity coming from? That's coming from P. So we can put it in here, P, and we'll label that as quantity. Item quantity. Okay, what next? Next up, now we have S. What's going to go in S? Of course, in S is going to be our price, and our price is coming from Q. And we can label that as price. Next up, we have a formula, right? We want to put in the formula. So what's that formula? I want to put in the formula. It's going to be whatever is in R times S. So let's put in that formula right now, and that's going to go in T. So we can paste that, but we can get rid of the second part of that. T is going to equal, in this case, it's a formula, so it's quotation marks equals, again, in this case, it's P and the item row and quotation times S, whatever's in S. So it's R, it's actually R times S, right? R times S and the item row, R times S. And that's going to be the total. Now, one more thing in W, I need to put in the database row in case we make any changes we need to know. So I've got to put in the database row inside W. So dot range W, and the item row is going to be equal to, of course, that's the database row. And where is that located? That is located right here. And inside, we can just copy this and then just change the order here. And where is it coming from? Let's just take a double look. That's coming from our S, right? S is going to have our database row because we need to track that. So it's putting in S. And we'll label that as database row. Database row. Okay, nicely done. Okay, so W is going to equal S. That's very important. We want to make sure database row. That's it. Okay, that's all we need to do to load it. Now with just a few other cleanup. We'll also, of course, I want to add in run macro to add the totals. Remember, we added the macro. That's why we created a macro. And if there's no items, we probably don't need to add any totals. So let's write in there. So order add totals. That's the macro we created already. Run macro to add totals. See, a single macro does it, so we can use it multiple times. And let's take a look at that. Let's save our work. Okay, so basically when do we want to load this order? I want to load it when a user makes a change. When he makes a change to what? T3. So let's write that in, and then, of course, it has to contain a value. So let's go back to our main sheet, and this is going to be not on selection change, but worksheet change. So we're going to focus on a change here. And then what range are we changing? T3. If the T3. If they make a change to T3, then run that macro. Then order load. Okay, let's try that. Let's save our work. Go down here and let's just put in 6 again as this one we just worked on. Please enter correct order. Okay, we need to update that. I think that it worked out, but we do need to add that additional information in. So let's write that up because we don't want that coming up and then loading. So let's do that. And you know what happened was as soon as we cleared this out, it came up, right? So we don't need to run that when it's empty. So let's make sure that if it's empty, we don't need that. So again, what we're going to do is nothing, then let's add some additional information that, because we don't need to run if it's empty, and if. So we just want to make sure if, let's just say range T3 dot value does not equal empty, then run the order load. Okay, let's see, let's take a look at that and make sure that because we do clear it out. So 6. Okay, that looks very nice. The only thing is a little bit slow. It's pretty fast, but it can be faster. I know we can make it a lot faster. We can use stop calculation. What we'll do is we'll turn off automatic calculations, turn off screen updating. I've got that here already inside a macro. Let's take a look at this. You'll see this one's called reset calculation and stop calculation. What that's going to do is turn calculations to manual and screen updating to false. So all I need to write is stop calculation and just make sure by the end of the macro that I make sure to reset the calculations. So on the load, let's do that. But you don't want to put it at the top. I want to put it after the last exit sub. So stop calc, and then after it ends, all the way down here, reset calc. Okay, that's going to make it a lot faster because it's going to turn off calculations. And now we can clear up, get rid of this, and save our work. And now let's try it. Now it's going to be a lot faster. 6. Oh yeah, that was super fast. Okay, you see how fast that was? I'm putting in different orders. The only thing is we don't have the order number. We got to put that order number in. That's not getting put in properly. So let's make sure we put in the R6. I think I just need to change it to the variable. So on the load, right, R6, I'm going to put this because we've already cleared out. So we need to just put in the order. We've already defined the order number up here. Right here, we've already defined it. So all I need to put in is the order number right here. That should be sufficient. Okay, I think that'll be corrected. And we don't need to clear this out. We can keep that blank. We don't need to clear out those. Let's keep those blank because they're going to be filled in with the new data because we're clearing it out. So that'll be fine. There we go. Now it'll work. Okay, so now it's better because in case there's anything blank. So let's update. Let's put a thread and save that order. And then let's put in order number 1. So that clears out. Order number 2. Nice. That's looking really nice, really nice. Okay, just a few more things to do and then we're going to get done with this marathon training. I want to be able to, of course, send this to the kitchen and send it to the local printer. And I also don't want this extra white space. I only want white space where it's needed. And basically, I want to go with just one extra row below the payment. And otherwise, I don't want it to be. So let's add some conditional formatting to this. First thing what I want to do is I'm just going to color everything blue, give it that dark blue. And then what I'll do is I'll add conditional formatting to make it white. So everything's got the blue. And then what I want to do is I want to add some rules onto the conditional formatting to make only those cells white when it's necessary. So I'm going to go all the way down here as a start, and then I'm going to go to home, conditional formatting. I'm going to add a new rule, manage rules, and I'm going to use multiple conditions to base this rule on. So use a formula, equal, or, right? So either a few things. What I want is either P, let's just call it P, and then 8 not equal empty, or again, in this case, Q, we can use Q as that Q. And of course, we're not going to use a dollar sign. The row is not going to be absolute. 8 does not equal empty. Or what else? Or I also want to know 7. Why do I want to do 7? Because I want the row after as well automatically. So I'm going to use actually P, comma, and then P7. 7. That's going to give us one additional row below, because that's what I want. One additional row does not equal empty. Then what do I want to do? Then I want to color those white. So format, fill, and I want to give it a white color. Let's take a look at that and see how that works. Click OK and apply. And that's good, except I don't want this row. So how do we avoid that? Well, I think that's going to be avoided automatically on rows. Let's just put in a row number here. Okay, so we need one more row. What else do we want? Let's add additional row, one additional row, because I want at least to be able to skip one row for that. In fact, I think let's do that. Let's add 2 rows. So I'm going to go back into the conditional formatting and then manage the rules, and we're going to use the row 6. So let's do also 6. So back into this row here and then edit this rule, and one more. We're going to add P6, and that is going to give us 2 rows of additional, which is what we want. Give us a little bit. And then just change that to 6. Okay, click OK and click apply. That's what I want. That gives us a little bit of freedom around there. And good, so perfect that we have that. That's what I want. Okay, very good. Except let me add that. Let's try that on a new. Now I want a new order. How do I create a brand new order? So I want to clear that out and put a new order. That's pretty easy. Let's write some macros to create a brand new order, and we're going to assign it all to that. So we're going to go into miscellaneous macros, and we're going to write some orders for that. First thing I want to do, sub order new. Okay, and again, we've done that. We've already assigned the type. So if we look at that, we know this is takeaway, we know this is delivery, and I'm going to put that right into S6 based on the shape they selected. And each one of those shapes are going to be based on a new order. They're going to be all assigned. So it's very easy to write this with sheet 1. I want to make sure that before we click a new order, I want to make sure that we're saving the new order. So how do we know that? If there's a value here, I want to make sure that the order is saved. Before we click a new order, I want to make sure we save the existing order. So how do we do that? Well, let's do that. If .range P8 does not equal empty, then order save update. Okay, that's going to save the order automatically, assuming that PA is not empty. Okay, so save existing order before clearing it out. Okay, so now I want to clear everything out. So what do I want to clear out? Again, B5, we've already done that. Remember on load, we've already cleared everything out. So we could just copy that and then move on. So we've done that. Let's just copy this and then paste it in here. So miscellaneous, now we've already done that. Okay, so but now we can add those additional features. We can add that P6 all the way through U6. So we can add those in. We don't need those, we don't need that information. And so now we have everything cleared out. Okay, so I also want to again hide the I want to hide those icons. These icons here, no need for them as well. Paste them in there. No need to display the edit or delete icons. Next up, I also want to again make the order ID. What about the order ID? And this time is where we actually add in the next order ID. We know the next order ID, that's located right here into B6. So I'm going to take whatever's in B6 and I'm going to place it right here into R6. So let's do that with some code. .range R6 is equal to B6. Okay, that's the next order ID. So now we have the next order ID. What do I want to do? I want to set the order type. What's the order type? Remember, order type is going to go right here into S6. This is where the order type, where's it coming from? It's coming from our application caller right here. So we can do that in this line of code. .range S6 is equal to application .caller. That's going to call the name of the shape as order type. Pretty cool, huh? Because that way we can assign the same macro to all those shapes, order type. So now that we have that, now all we need to do is I want to set the order to true. I just want to set .range B1.value equals true. In fact, let me make sure that we set this to false on saving, because I don't think we did. Order save update. The last thing we want to do, right? We want to set in, make sure B1 equals false. Order new order equals, and usually we don't use this too much in this training, equals false. New order to false. Okay, we don't use it too much in this training, but that's it. I want to set B1 to false so we can differentiate between a new order and that. Okay, so we have that. That's pretty much it. That's all we need. So now, super simple macro. So I'm just going to copy this macro. We could easily assign it. I'm going to assign that to all three of those shapes up there. So again, selection tool. You can also use the control. Either one would work. Okay, now what I want to do is assign the macro and then paste the macro that we just copied right here. Click OK. Save our work, especially before we use clear contents in case we clear too much out. Click new dine in. All right, that's perfect. That's what I want. Just what I want. Now when we add them, let's reduce this a little bit. So bring it over here so we can see. Add in some pizza. Add in 2 pizzas. Add in multiple pizzas. Add in some salads. See how quick it is to order. Add in some pasta. I love pasta. Oh my goodness, I'm going to be gaining weight on this. Some main courses. I like some chicken piccata. And I want to give them some drinks. I get very thirsty, so I better add in some Cokes. And I want to add in dessert. Oh, desserts. So I'm going to have every one of these. This training makes me hungry. Look at that. Now I'm going to save the order. Perfect. Wow, look at that. Excellent. That is a nice. Now what do? We better send it to the kitchen. They got a lot to cook. How are we going to send it to the kitchen? Let's do it right now. We have multiple printers. Look, we've got multiple printers. I've got a macro that I'm going to share with you. We don't even need to create it because I'm going to share it with you. It's going to put all of the printers there, and then I can select which printer's for the kitchen, which printer is the local printer, and then we can print automatically just based on that. So let's do that right now. So the first thing I did was create a dynamic named range based on the printer list. So let's take a look at that into the formulas name manager. We're just going to call it printers. So it's a dynamic named range based on this. But how do I get all the printers on my machine? Let's take a look at that macro. That's already been created in the application macros. And we're going to get to the update. This is called the update printer list. And basically what it's going to do is going to loop through all of the printers inside your local machine, all the workstation, everything on the network. It's going to loop through that. So we've got the printer number, we got the row number, the workstation. And so what we're going to do is first thing I want to clear out all the contents on G5. I want to clear all these printers out just like that. Clear them out. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through. I'm going to set the printers all the way through the printers, set the printers for the computer. Then we're going to loop through all the printers. Now keep in mind that for every single printer, there's 2 counts. One is the printer number and the second one is the printer name. So I want the printer number plus 1. The second position is the name, the first position is the number. So when I want that printer name and we're looping through this, we're going to look through the printer number plus 1 because the first one is just the number. So we want the name based on the printer number. Basically, it's going to take that, put it in D. Then all I need to do is increment the row numbers. So again, for each one, we're starting on 4 and then just going up, looping through all the printers on your machine. So when I run that macro, it's going to load all the printers automatically just like that. Easy. So now we have a dynamic named range. So now all I want to do is take that dynamic named range and put it here and here. Use data validation to get that. So I can select a printer. Now that I know the printer, all I do is need to set a named range called local printer right here, or set a named range as kitchen printer right here. So back to now we understand how we get. So now what I want to do is I want to click this button or click this entire button and have this group show up just like that. How do I do that? Let's take a look and zoom in, make sure they're all. I don't really like the border around here, so let's get rid of the border. Format, shape outline, and just click no outline. We don't want the border on that. So, and then I'll just make sure I'm going to move it over a little bit so that they're perfectly lined up. Good, now they're perfectly lined up. So what I want to do is I want to get this, it's called the send to group, and I want to get it to print, to display right below this, right when we click it or not click it. So let's write a macro that's going to display this group. But first let's go ahead and group this. It's a little bit small of a, don't you think it's a little bit small? A little bit. Let's spread this out a little bit so we can give it some more space and move this over. Okay, and this icon over a little bit. So we want to send order, but I want to click on this and I want to have this drop down shape appear only when I click it. If I click it again, I want it to hide. So how do we do that? Well, remember, this is called send to group, send to group. So let's write some code to display that automatically, and then we'll assign that to this. Let's group this first, holding down the control. I'm going to group it all, and we'll just call it send order group. Okay, so now we've got it sent. So let's write a macro to display that. Back inside, and we have a miscellaneous macros we're gonna add to this now. And this one, we're gonna call it sub order send to. Pretty simple. Okay, so all I wanna do is, if I wanna do a test, is it displayed or not? If sheet, this is one line of code, one.shapes send to group dot visible equals true. If it's already displayed, then hide it. Then sheet one dot shapes send to group dot visible equals MSO false. So we're gonna hide it. If it's visible, we're gonna hide it. But if it's not visible, then we're gonna show it. So how do we do that? Now we just need to copy that. Else, that means it's currently not visible. So else, then display it. MSOC true. Easy enough. So now we just copy that, but I also want to I may want to display it. If it moves, maybe we can display it, but it shouldn't move. In other words, do we need to position this automatically, or will it maintain the position? It should maintain the position, but you can easily position it with VBA, but since this is a 3-hour training, probably done enough. Okay, so now all we need to do is right click, assign that macro, order send to. Now let's click it once, it hides it, click it another, show it. Nice. Okay, that's exactly what I want. Let's position it a little bit. Great. So now when they click it, I want to click the send to and print to the local machine or send to the kitchen with those macros. How do we do that? Let's just write 2 macros, very simple macros, and we're going to do that. So that macro, sub order print local machine. Okay, we're going to print the local one, and then we'll just copy and paste it and put it in the printer as well. So how do we do that? Dim the printer range. I need to set the printer range as string, right? We need to know the printer range, and then the last row, dimension the last row as long. Okay, so this time we can say that we're gonna, first of all, we need to hide the shapes. So this one here, this shape here, we can hide this. So I'm gonna copy and paste this right here, because the first thing I want to do is hide the shapes. We don't want to see that anymore. Dot hide send to group. No need for that. What next I want to determine the last row based on P. The last row is equal to, based on P, right? Whatever's in P, that's going to be our last row. That's going to help us determine what to print and what not to print, set our printer range. So it's going to be the last row with value. Last row. Okay, so now that we have the last row, we can set our printer range. So the print range is equal to, let's set that up. It's going to be P starting with 5. In fact, I want P and then 5. Why do I want 5? Because I want to make sure to include the entire table. I want to include this table here, table number and everything like that. So it's going to start in P5 and it's going to go all the way to U and whatever the last row is. So it's going to set up our printer range P5 through U and the last row. Okay, now we're ready to print. So let's set up our page. Page, got to sit with sheet 1. We need to do that. That's important. Okay, so now we don't need this end width. We already have an end width there. Okay, so page setup. What is the page setup? Print area and equals the print range. Okay, now we're ready to print it out. So again, since we've set up, remember we've already set up named ranges for the local printers called local printer. We've already set up a printer for the kitchen printer, so it's super easy at this point. So print out. What are we printing out? Well, we don't need the from and to. We don't need copies, and we don't want a preview. We can put false on that. And the active printer. What is the active printer? In this case, we're going to put local printer. That's the named range we created. Local printer. And then print to file, no, print to file name, and ignore print areas, we want that false. That's it. That's all we need to do. Pretty simple. To do the print, that's for the local, but what about for the kitchen? Almost the same. Let's just copy that, paste that down here, and then of course we're going to change the macro name. Can't have to print send to kitchen, order send to kitchen. And all I need to do on this one is just change the named range to whatever the named range we set up. Let's double check that to make sure we have the name range. This one's called kitchen printer, so we can copy that, go back into the macro, and then just change the named range here, printer. That's it, kitchen printer. Okay, so save that. Now what I need to do is assign these macros to those buttons that we saw. So let's go back into the restaurant and POS here. This is one send to local, so I'm going to hold the control down, select both of those, and then I'm going to click assign macro, and this one's going to be, of course, send to print to local machine. That's good. And this one's going to be send to the kitchen. So again, right click, assign the macro. This one's going to be send to the kitchen. Okay, save our work, check for any errors. Send to local. I've got Snagit as my printer. It looks like it's working fine. And that's good. That's exactly what I want to see. Very, very nice. I'm going to get rid of those. Put some normal borders on the upper. That otherwise it looks pretty good. Let's put some normal borders on that. Format the cells. Looks kind of funny with those double borders. Okay, good. That looks pretty good. I like that. And let's just check the kitchen. Although we've got the same printer, making sure that it works. You can use any printer. All right, now we're sending it to the kitchen. We've got a few more things to do, and all I need to do is set the payment, and then we're pretty much done. So let's get that done, and then we're going to be done. And if you're still awake, I really appreciate that. All right, back into the same module we'll go. We're just going to create a brand new macro called order enter payment. Sub order enter payment. So I want to put the change. So first we're going to dimension the last row as long and the order row as long. So we need both of those. Those are going to help us out. And with sheet 1, of course, we're focused on that. And first of all, I want to make sure that B4 is not. I want to make sure that the user has saved the row. We need to save it before we can enter. So we want to make sure that B4 contains a value. If it doesn't, let's go back to 100% here. If B4 doesn't contain a value, then we know it hasn't been saved. So we want to prompt the user to save it first. So B4, let's make sure that that contains a value. If .range B4 equals empty equals empty, then message box, please save this order before entering a payment. Okay, and then exit sub. Nothing we can do if they haven't saved it, and if. Okay, so assuming that they have saved it, we can now move on. So first of all, we can just double check. Let's just save it. Let's run the macro to save it first. Order save and update. That's going to run it, save, just in case any changes. In case anything's not saved, we want to make sure it's saved. So now that it's so saved, we can set the last row. Last row, of course, is going to be equal to P again. We've already set it up here, so we can just copy that up here. We know that the last row here. Okay, so we've got the last row, and the order row, we know that that's in B4, right? So we're going to copy this and put the order row, by far my longest training ever. Order row. This is triple what our normal time is. Now that we have our order row, let's create a payment. Where do I want to put that payment? And I want to put an input box. I want to put that payment right in. If we know the last row is going to be this, where's our payment going to go? Our payment's going to go, we need to actually create an additional payment. Let's put it in. I want to put in actually, payment's going to go right in here in Q in the last row. Q in the last row is where our payment's going to go. So let's do that. So .range Q and the last row .value equals what? Let's create an input box so they can do it. Equals input box. And what should be in that input box? Let's first give them a prompt. Please enter a payment amount. Okay, so now they've got the payment amount, and then just give it a title, enter payment. That's going to prompt them to enter a payment. Okay, so now that we have that, and what is it going to equal? And that's it. Okay, so now that we hit, that's the input box, that'll put it in Q in the last row. So what I want to do is to make sure that we have our formulas. We'll double check that. I think they're all going to be already in. So we have our formulas. Our formulas are looking good. So let's just say they enter a payment, in this case of, let's say 200. That's an expensive dinner. Okay, of 200, we want to make sure that this equals the, we want to make sure that the change, we want to make that this change is going to equal whatever is the payment that they've entered. In fact, let's add that in here. So the change is going to, we're going to put the formula into the change. So T in the last row is going to be equal whatever's in here, whatever's in T in the last row less 1. Let's put in the change. Okay, so how do we do that? Dot range T and the last row, we know it's still last row, dot formula equals, again, what's it going to equal? In this case, equals Q and whatever they just entered, Q in the last row, and what else? And quotation marks minus T and the last row minus 1. And the last row minus 1. So that's going to, what that was, that's the total that they're going to be entering. So payments minus the total. So that puts in our formula. All right, let's take a look at that and see what else we would want to do. Let's make sure to save it, and let's assign the macro to that payment. So we've got our payment up here. In fact, let's bring it over here a little bit, make it look a little more centered, bring it here, and then hold down the control. We're going to group it, and we're going to call this payment group, and we're going to assign a macro to it. So assign the macro, and that's the one we just created, located right here under order enter payment. So save our work, and let's click enter payment. Enter payment, let's say 200, and click OK, and scroll down here. All right, that looks good. We just want to format this. Let's format them all. We don't know if it's text, it's okay. Format, and then the currency up here. Okay, that looks good. Now we've got the change calculated, and let's save the order, and let's take a look in here in order number 7, and let's take a look under the orders. We've got the payment, order number 7. We do need to make sure that we save the payment and the discount information. That's got to be saved. Okay, great. Now all we need to do is save that information here. So we need to save the orders. I want to save the discount and the payment in G and H. So let's do that right now. Let's add that additional to the code. So we have here enter payment. So we can do that with the following lines of code. Sheet 3.range G and the order row. We know the order row dot value equals, what is it going to equal? Dot range Q T. So in this case, G, what do I want to put in G? I want to put in the discount. And where's the discount located? That's located in the last row. This is the last row, minus 2, located in T. And let's move these over. I'm going to left justify those here, all the way over here. And I'm going to put left justify everything in that column. I'm going to left justify everything in that column right here. I want it over there. That's what I want. Right justify everything in this column here because I want that. Right justify, that looks good. That's what I want. Okay, so now all we need to do again, I want to save whatever's the discount, and I want to save the payment information here. So save the discount, save the payment. Discount is located in T and the last row minus 2. So let's write that up. Equals T and the last row minus 2. And let's go with that. That's the discount. And the last thing is the, of course, the payment amount. So let's just copy this and put in the payment amount. And this is the payment amount. But of course, the payment amount is actually, that's in column G, H is we're saving it to. And where is it located? The payment amount, of course, is located right here in Q in the last row. That's pretty simple. Q and the last row. No need to change the row on that, last row. And that's the payment amount. Okay, so let's save that. And now let's just enter the payment once more time. Payment, put in 200. And okay, good. So everything's worked out good. Let's look in the orders. Now we have the payment. There is no discount. I guess we should enter a discount, double check it. Let's just double check it, 5. Let's enter the payment again and make sure 200. Okay, so now we have the discount, except the discount disappeared. We got to fix that. We just need to write a little bit of code for this. When we make a change, we want to make sure that that discount saves right here in there. So let's write some code on that to do that. So we're going to go back into our change, and here we're going to focus on the change. When we make a change, let's do that. So we can do that. Let's write in save discount. If not, if user makes a change to T, let's say T8, of course, there's a few conditions, through T9999 is nothing, then I want to make sure that it's actually a total row. Then what? Then if range S and the target row, make sure it's a discount. I want to make sure that's the only kind of target row dot value equal, and let's put discount. Okay, if it equals that, and I want to make sure it's a total row, and make sure it's not empty, and range T and the target dot row dot value does not equal empty, then we can do it. Then we can save it. Now sheet 3 dot range, remember G is the column we're saving it, G and the target. And what row? Where's the row? The row's in B4. Range B4, that's the order row, dot value. So what are we going to save there? Equals, simple, the target value, target dot value. How does that work? Well, let me show you how. Very simple. Okay, now we got to get out of this. We don't want it inside this loop. Let's clear this up and clean this up a little bit. Okay, let's run it again, and $10. Make sure that's saved now on our order for number 7. That's what I want. Perfect. So now we have it all ready. Now let's see if it's loading right. I want to make sure that that loads in. Again, putting in 7 here. Load that in. Discount needs to load up, payment needs to load, and the change needs to load. So let's load those. Okay, back into that. Now this is our load macro. So after we load our totals, we can just load it from the database. Again, so how do we do that? Well, we know let's get the last row again. Last row equals, again, dot range P999, P9999, and dot end XLUP dot row. Okay, so now that we know the last row, we can easily insert the information. We know our order number. We've got our order row here, so we know that. And that's coming from here. So again, we can just continue on. And we want to enter, what do we want to enter? Well, of course, I want to enter the payment number. That's going to be Q in the last row. So dot range Q and the last row. Make sure we've dimensioned the last row up here. I want to make sure that it's here. Last row here, good. Okay, so last row, what does that equal? It equals sheet 3 dot range. It's coming from our orders, and that's going to be located right here in for our payment. H is where it's going to come from. That's where I want our payment to show up. H and our order row dot value. That's payment, and then of course the discount dot range. Where's our discount going to go? Our discount's going to go right into our T and the last row minus 2. T and the last row minus 2. Dot value equals, and this is going to be G, right? It's coming from G. That's where it's going to go. All right, coming from G, that's going to be our discount. Now we've got everything loaded up. Discount. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to save that, and let's reload that. I'm going to put in 7 again here, load 7, and see now we've got our payment, now we've got our discount. And the only thing is we still need a formula for the change. We just need to add in that formula, and I want to add it in the formulas. So we can do that. That should be loaded inside our macro called order add totals. So we're going to add that right in here under the save here, and add totals here. So that's just one last formula that we need to add in, is our change formula. Okay, so let's do that. Dot range, and our change formula would be T in the last row. Remember, we can focus on T in the last row. In this case, it's just T and the last row. In fact, we wrote this formula already, but we just need to write. We wrote it when we added the payment in. So we dot formula. Let's just copy it where we wrote it before, so we don't need to rewrite it again. Formula. And where did we wrote it on the payment? So that was in the miscellaneous macro. And what is going to be equals? Of course, it's going to be our total, right? Our total. Where's our total? Our total is located right here. Again, equals in the quotation marks equals Q, right? Let's take a look at the formula right here, just so we know. Equals the payment minus the total, right? So what is that? So that's going to be equal, again, all we got to do is copy that and determine the rows. So we copy that, equals Q, and now, quotation, what is 28? 28, of course, is the last row plus 4. So we just need to copy this, the last row plus 4. That's going to be equal to, and 28, and last row plus 4, and then again, change 27 to the last row and the last row instead of minus 3, right? The last row T and the last row. So let's give that a try. Let's click the add the totals. Okay, so now we're going to run that code. Let's take a look. There we go. Okay, let's do it again. So now we've got everything here just the way we want it. Let's run that code here. Enter 7. Now we have everything we need. Now we have the change, we have the tax, we have the total. Perfect, just the way we wanted it. So we have our 100. We have our total is going to be again 189.44 minus the 10% discount, giving us 179. We've paid 200 for our expensive dinner, and our change again is 20.56. That's exactly right. Okay, so we've got the payments, we've got the send order, we've got the save order. Let's add the pop-up keyboard. So I'm going to hold down the control, group that. This is the cool. I'm going to call this keyboard group. Now I've written a copy, actually I've copied and pasted some code that I found on the internet for a great keyboard. No reason to reinvent the wheel. Into the application macros, keyboard open. I've got a brand new macro that runs that, and it's done all with this. Update the printer list, and it uses this code as well, so just keep that in mind. And so all I need to do is take this particular code and then assign it to our keyboard, and that's going to give us our really cool pop-up keyboard. Right click, assign the macro, paste it in, and click OK. All right, now let's click here, and our pop-up keyboard now shows up. Here it is. Very, very cool. So we can easily type in anything we want. I know this is going to be small. You can even make the keyboard smaller if you want, just by grouping it here. It even shrinks down really nicely. That's kind of cool. So it shrinks up. It's a really beautiful keyboard. All right, thank you so much for those of you that stuck around on this incredibly long training. I'm going to take 2 weeks off and focus on my marketing, and we'll be back with some amazing training. Thank you so much. I think we covered everything in this training to create a brand new point of sale application. If you like this training and you want me to continue with these free, I always appreciate your support, your likes, your shares, your subscriptions, and of course your purchase of the workbook packages really help me out a lot. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.